As Mary, nearing her late 50s, reflects on her life, she finds herself at a turning point. With her 2 children, one on the brink of marriage and the other thriving in college, she senses her motherly duties waning. As a former nurse, she contemplates a return to caregiving, feeling the pull of her profession once more. However, life throws her a curveball when she receives distressing news. Her father-in-law, Bob, has suffered a stroke. Rushing to the hospital at her husband John's urgent call, Mary's thoughts swirl with concern. Bob, always a pillar of kindness and warmth, has been grappling with the loss of his wife, Alice, for the past 3 years. Despite Mary's efforts to uplift his spirits through family gatherings and outings, she's noticed a gradual decline in Bob's energy. Just as she begins to see glimmers of his old vitality returning, the news of his stroke hits her like a thunderbolt. Arriving at the hospital, she finds Bob's daughter and son-in-law engaged in conversation, a mix of emotions swirling within her. "Apologies for my tardiness. How's Bob holding up?" I gasped out, hurting to catch up with John's sister, Isabella. Her response was a sigh of irritation as she glanced my way, clearly annoyed. "You're late. We're in a hurry. Can you handle this?" With that brisk dismissal, she hurried off, leaving me behind. Isabella's indifference towards Bob was palpable, a demeanor she carried even when Alice, Bob's late wife, was alive. Despite Bob and Alice's unwavering kindness, Isabella remained aloof, untouched by their warmth. Left alone in the waiting area, I paced nervously, my thoughts consumed by Bob's condition. Meanwhile, John rushed in, his concern evident in the beads of sweat on his forehead and his soaked dress shirt. "Mary, how's Dad?" he asked anxiously. I shook my head, indicating I had no updates yet. John's reaction was visceral. He dropped the bags he was carrying, his complexion draining of color. "No, that's not what I meant," I reassured him quickly. "He's still in surgery. We're waiting for news." Relief washed over John, evident in the way he retrieved his fallen bags and slumped into a nearby chair. "Should we brace ourselves?" I hurried over to John, who teetered on the edge of tears, and placed a comforting hand on his back. "It'll be all right," I murmured, feeling utterly helpless with no words substantial enough to offer solace. Hours ticked by before the surgery's conclusion, and we were ushered into a small room by the doctor for an update. "The surgery went well, but there may be lasting effects," the doctor explained gently, indicating that Bob would require ongoing care. While our hearts hoped for Bob's swift recovery, the reality of caregiving loomed, a responsibility that would involve Isabella and her husband. John and I decided to reach out to Isabella to discuss the next steps. After a conversation, we agreed to convene at Bob's home, a gathering necessitated by the circumstances while Bob remained hospitalized. "I won't be his caregiver," Isabella declared bluntly, sending shockwaves through John and me. "But what are we supposed to do then?" I countered, baffled by her indifference. Isabella, nonchalant, continued toying with her meticulously manicured nails, a stark contrast to the gravity of the conversation. Her husband, Tham, simply nodded along. "What about a nursing home?" I suggested, met with Isabella's vehement refusal. "I'm not wasting money on that. This is what happens whenever I get involved," she snapped, shooting me a venomous glare. "It's like my opinion doesn't matter, so I keep quiet. If he can't go to a facility and neither of you will care for him, what's the plan?" John pressed, frustration seeping into his voice. "That's why you should handle it. I don't want some burden in my home," Isabella chuckled callously, pushing me to my breaking point. "Enough. He's your father, for heaven's sake," I snapped, my patience wearing thin. "I don't care. Why am I expected to bear the responsibility just because he's my father? He's John's father too. I've been saying you two should handle it." "I don't have a response to that. We'd love to care for him at home, but our house isn't equipped for it," I explained, feeling the weight of reality pressing down. "There are too many obstacles, stairs, uneven floors. To bring my father-in-law here, we need significant renovations and we simply can't afford it." "Mary, you're trained in caregiving, aren't you? It shouldn't be a big deal," Isabella remarked smugly, her tone grating on my nerves. John shared my frustration, and we silently agreed to table the discussion for now, retreating from his parents' home. "What's our next move, Mary? You mentioned considering a return to caregiving," John inquired, his concern evident. "It's not just about the job. We have to make this place safe for Dad, and that's a financial challenge," I replied, trying to reassure him. "You're right," John conceded, acknowledging the daunting road ahead. I estimate it could cost around $100,000. That's just a ballpark figure, but considering the modifications needed for the entire first floor to accommodate him, that's roughly what we're looking at. I mused aloud, grappling with the daunting financial reality. With our eldest still in college, we simply don't have that kind of money. We're still paying off the mortgage, and the thought of taking on another loan for renovations is overwhelming. It's a difficult decision, but should we consider a facility for him? The question is, would he even be able to get in? The waitlists are long, and the expenses significant, and I doubt Isabella and her family would offer any assistance. It feels like we're stuck with no viable solution. Deciding to at least listen to my father-in-law's perspective, I made my way alone to the hospital where he was admitted. Stepping into his room, I was greeted by a sight that lifted my spirits. My father-in-law, visibly improved, greeted me with a warm smile. "Please don't apologize," my father-in-law would often murmur upon my visits. "There's no trouble at all. And look, I've brought you one of your favorite books today." "Why apologize? You're bringing me joy," I'd respond, trying to uplift his spirits. The doctor had informed us of his stroke, leaving him unable to move the right half of his body independently. To read, he'd prop the book on the table, using a weight to keep the pages steady. "Ah, thank you," my father-in-law replied gratefully, accepting the book I'd brought. I'd gently placed the book by his pillow. "Dad, I came today because I wanted to talk about what lies ahead," I began, meeting his warm smile with a heavy heart. "Oh, I understand. I'll be fine, even in a nursing home. I've prepared for it, so please don't worry," he reassured me, though I sensed a flicker of loneliness in his eyes. "Well, Dad, if you're open to it, why not come stay with us? I have experience in elderly care, and as a stay-at-home mom, I have the time. John will be there too. Let's live together," I blurted out, sensing his solitude. His surprise was evident, perhaps realizing deep down that returning to his own home, where Isabella and her husband resided, might not be feasible. I couldn't shake the feeling that they'd view him as a burden, ultimately leading to a nursing home. The thought weighed heavily on me, overshadowing my initial intention to listen to my father-in-law's wishes. There was a twinge of guilt toward my husband John, but I knew he'd understand. Now, we needed to arrange for his care upon discharge. Money was a concern, so I decided to seek Isabella's input. With these thoughts swirling in my mind, I made my way home. When John returned from work, I recounted the events at the hospital. He appeared troubled but nodded, almost as if he had anticipated this turn of events. Without delay, John dialed Isabella's number. "We're reaching out for assistance because we'll be the ones caring for Dad," John explained, his voice tinged with frustration as their conversation escalated. With a resigned sigh, he ended the call and briefed me on their exchange. "Isabella refused to contribute any funds. It seems there's little we can do about it," he disclosed, his concern evident as he contemplated the financial implications for his father-in-law. From then on, our home buzzed with activity. We deliberated over renovations, essential care supplies, and received guidance on home care options. When I informed my father-in-law that he'd be moving in with us upon discharge, his expression was a mix of gratitude and regret. "Mary, could you fetch the checkbook from over there?" he requested, gesturing toward a cloth bag on the shelf. Curious as to why he'd need it, I obliged, retrieving the checkbook during one of our visits. Observing my father-in-law, I watched as he opened the bank book and presented it to me. "I have some savings here. Could you and John make use of it?" The figure written in the checkbook was staggering, surpassing any amount I'd ever seen. Stunned, I must have appeared frozen, prompting my father-in-law to chuckle. "You and John will be looking after me now, won't you? I heard about the new car and the renovations to make the house accessible. Would $10 million cover it?" $10 million. The zeros overwhelmed me, leaving me speechless. I couldn't fathom why my father-in-law had amassed such a fortune, but it seemed that after my mother-in-law's passing, he had turned to investments he had been studying, and they had proven lucrative. His savings had grown exponentially, fueled by his restrained spending habits. Yet even if he intended to renovate the house or purchase a car, the sum seemed excessive. Reluctantly, I returned the bank book, shaking my head. "I can't accept this much. Please keep it for yourself." He pushed the book back toward me, insisting, "I can't possibly use all of this. I'd rather return it to you and your family, who are willing to care for me." Once again faced with the returned bank book, I stood my ground. "I really can't accept such a large sum," I insisted firmly. After a brief pause, my father-in-law proposed, "How about $1 million?" Realizing the impasse, I managed to negotiate a compromise, settling on a reduced amount of $100,000. Though he seemed reluctant, he agreed, and for the time being, that seemed satisfactory. As we were in the midst of this exchange, Isabella suddenly appeared, catching us off guard. Quickly, I stashed the bank book back in its place. Seeing my hurried actions, Isabella's brow furrowed in concern. "What's going on?" she inquired, her voice tinged with worry. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful she hadn't overheard our previous conversation. Isabella had come to deliver some clothes for our father. After a brief exchange, we left the hospital room together. However, on our way home, Isabella suggested stopping by a coffee shop for a discussion. Given her history of bringing up unpleasant topics, I braced myself for what was to come. Reluctantly, I acquiesced, unaware of the twist awaiting us. "I'll take care of Dad," Isabella declared out of the blue, stunning me. Her sudden proposition caught me off guard, especially since we were already knee-deep in preparations to accommodate my father-in-law, including ongoing renovations to our home. I couldn't fathom why she would make such a proposal at this stage. "So you won't need to visit the hospital anymore," she added. "Visiting isn't solely the responsibility of the caregiver. There's no rule dictating that only the caretaker should visit." Why would she say that? I pondered, feeling perplexed by Isabella's unexpected offer. Despite my reservations, I suggested we postpone discussing it further and made my exit from the cafe. Back at home, I shared the encounter with John, who mulled over it before a realization dawned on him. "She must have caught wind of the savings," he concluded. "It seems that's the case," he added. "Otherwise, she wouldn't have volunteered for the caretaking role, especially given her previous reluctance." I harbored a vague suspicion that Isabella had somehow discovered the extent of my father-in-law's savings and was angling to secure a share of it for herself. Perhaps she would concoct a reason to start dipping into the funds. "But what do we do about it?" I queried, feeling a sense of unease. "I got an idea. Let's give her a chance," John suggested with a mischievous grin, hinting at a plan brewing in his mind. Uneasy about his scheme, I opted to stay silent and play along with Isabella's request for the time being. I assured my father-in-law that financial concerns were no longer an issue and that Isabella would be providing care. His response was vague, his expression neither confirming nor denying his comprehension. With that, the conversation concluded. Following his discharge from the hospital, my father-in-law returned to the family home in Nebraska, where Isabella resided. During a visit to the house, I couldn't discern any signs of renovation or adequate caregiving supplies. I questioned whether genuine caregiving could take place under such circumstances. However, it was Isabella's decision, and I felt it wasn't my place to intervene, so I remained silent. 2 months later, I received a frantic call from Isabella. "Mary, I can't do this anymore. Please come over right now," she pleaded urgently. Concerned, I wasted no time and rushed to the house in Nebraska. Upon my arrival, I was greeted by a disarrayed house and a foul odor lingering in the air. Puzzled by the scene before me, Isabella emerged, looking more worn out than ever. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her movements were unsteady. "Are you all right?" I asked, rushing to her side, alarmed by her condition. Isabella grasped my hand tightly and muttered, "Get rid of that." Confused at first, I managed to calm her down and coax an explanation out of her. It appeared that she had underestimated the demands of caregiving. From assisting with mobility and meals to managing incontinence, including dealing with diapers, the responsibilities had overwhelmed her. She felt incapable of managing anything, not even attending to her own needs. I reassured her that I couldn't make any immediate decisions but promised to reach out as soon as possible. With a heavy heart, I carried this burden home with me. "It's been 2 months already." "Impressive," John remarked, glancing at the calendar. It seemed he had anticipated this turn of events. He suggested we pick up my father-in-law on his next day off, and I readily agreed. A few days later, as we arrived at the family home in Nebraska, my father-in-law was already packed and prepared to depart. Relief washed over me knowing we could finally bring him home. Just because I endured for 2 months and used to live here doesn't mean I don't deserve compensation. "I think $5 million sounds fair," Isabella declared suddenly as we were assisting my father-in-law into the car. I froze in disbelief. John, too, was taken aback, turning to face Isabella with a mixture of surprise and dismay. But she remained unfazed, sporting a smug expression. "Isabella, What on earth are you talking about? This isn't the time or place to discuss money, especially not in front of Dad. Remember, he raised us, John reasoned, attempting to appeal to her sense of decency, but his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. I'm his daughter. It's only fair that I get compensated, Isabella retorted defiantly, her audacity catching me off guard. How could she be so brazen? Appalled by Isabella's attitude, I couldn't hold back. Isabella, discussing money in this manner is completely inappropriate. Besides, you've already received funds, I interjected, my father-in-law echoing my sentiment with a disbelieving expression. That's all gone now. Just $5 million. What's the harm in that? If you're just going to squander it away, you might as well put it to good use, sis. Isabella's callous words towards her own father left me speechless. Even my typically composed husband John was visibly enraged, his face flushing red with anger as he glared at his sister. John, it's all right, she's stating the truth. Bob, my father-in-law, attempted to calm his incensed son. Then, turning to Isabella with a stern demeanor, he delivered his verdict. Isabella, you are no longer welcome in this house. Leave immediately. His tone was cold and final. Stunned by his words, Isabella stood frozen in shock. What? What are you saying? I'm your daughter, Dad, Isabella exclaimed in disbelief. I have only one child, my son, and this woman beside me, Mary, is my daughter-in-law. I no longer recognize you. Leave with your foolish husband. Bob, my father-in-law, responded with a sternness that startled me. I had only known him to be gentle and soft-spoken, but now his eyes were steely, commanding no opposition. Even Isabella seemed subdued by his authority. Shall we depart then? We're relying on you moving forward, Bob continued, his demeanor shifting back to its usual warmth as he addressed me. With no other recourse, John and I complied with his directive. As we drove away, leaving Isabella behind in stunned silence, it felt surreal. Later, we learned that Bob had arranged with his lawyer to draft a last will and testament, ensuring that the inheritance would solely benefit John and guaranteeing that Isabella would not receive any portion of it. With Isabella gone, the house stood vacant and John and I expressed our desire to reside there. Bob gladly agreed. Isabella and her husband relocated to an apartment, but it became evident they had been tapping into Bob's finances even when he was in good health. Their extravagant spending habits landed them in debt, and now they struggle to settle it. Each day, I can't shake the feeling that this downfall was bound to happen for someone like Isabella, who lacks respect and gratitude towards her parent, regardless of biological ties. While tending to Bob's needs presents its challenges, my background in caregiving allows me to handle it without feeling burdened, and our relationship remains strong.
The email from my father landed like a bomb in my inbox, its words burning through the screen. You're making a mockery of our family name. Your actions are nothing short of betrayal. I stared at my phone, my hands trembling. My name is Morgan, and until last week, I was Morgan Fox. Now I'm Morgan Reynolds, my mother's maiden name, and my father can't handle it. The funny thing about betrayal is that it works both ways. I learned that lesson 3 days ago when I discovered the truth about my half-brother Leon's education. All those years when Dad told me he couldn't help with my college tuition, claiming financial hardship, he'd been secretly funding Leon's entire education at Stanford. Morgan, honey, Mom's voice carried from the kitchen. Your coffee's getting cold. I walked into our sun-filled kitchen, where Mom stood at the counter, her graying hair pulled back in a messy bun. She'd always made this house feel like home, even after Dad left us for his new family. He emailed me, I said, sliding onto a bar stool. He's furious about the name change. Mom's face softened. Of course he is. Cruz always did think everything was about him. You know what's ironic? I grabbed my coffee mug, warming my hands around it. He's calling me the traitor when he's the one who... My voice cracked. The doorbell rang, interrupting my brewing rant. Mom went to answer it, and I heard Maeve's familiar voice. My half-sister had become an unexpected ally in all this. Is it true? Maeve burst into the kitchen, her eyes wide. Dad's been losing it all morning, saying you changed your name? I nodded, pulling up the official documentation on my phone. Already done. The wedding invitations will say Morgan Reynolds. Oh my God! Maeve sank onto the stool next to me. I mean, I get it. especially after what you found out about Leon, but Dad's going to explode at the wedding. Let him, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. Abraham supports my decision. He knows everything. Mom returned with a stack of old photo albums. I found these while cleaning yesterday. Look at this one, girls. She opened to a photo of me at my high school graduation. I remembered that day vividly, how Dad had pulled me aside afterward to explain, again, why he couldn't help with college. I'm stretched thin, Morgan, he'd said. You understand, right? I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school, I said, touching the photo. 3 jobs, while Leon was living it up at Stanford on Dad's dime. Maeve touched my arm. I had no idea, Morgan. Neither did Leon. He thought his mom was paying for everything. My phone buzzed again. Another email from Dad. Your mother put you up to this, didn't she? She's always tried to turn you against me. He's blaming you, I told Mom, showing her the message. Mom laughed, a sharp, bitter sound I'd never heard from her before. I never had to turn you against him, Cruz. You did that all on your own. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Abraham, my fiancé, arriving early for our lunch date. He took one look at my face and knew. What did he do now? Abraham asked, wrapping an arm around me. Just more emails. He's convinced Mom orchestrated this whole thing. Because heaven forbid his actions have consequences, Abraham said, making me smile despite everything. Maeve stood up, gathering her purse. I should go. Dad's probably wondering where I am. She hugged me tight. For what it's worth, I think you're brave. And Morgan Reynolds has a nice ring to it. After she left, I showed Abraham the photo albums. Look at this, I said, pointing to another graduation photo. See how proud he looked? All while knowing he was lying to my face about money. The wedding's in 3 weeks, Abraham said quietly. Are you sure you want to go through with the name change before then? We could wait. I shook my head. No. I want to walk down that aisle as Morgan Reynolds. I want everyone to know I'm my mother's daughter. Mom wiped away tears I hadn't noticed falling. Oh, honey. My phone buzzed one more time. Dad again. This discussion isn't over. We'll talk about this at the wedding. Yes, I said, deleting the email. Yes, we will. I looked at Mom, then at Abraham, feeling stronger with them beside me. The name change wasn't just about getting back at Dad anymore. It was about honoring the parent who'd actually been there for me, who'd supported my dreams, instead of just paying lip service to them. You know what? I said, closing the photo album. I think it's time to start planning that father-daughter dance. Or should I say mother-daughter dance? Mom's smile lit up the room, and I knew, whatever storm Dad was planning to bring to my wedding, I was ready for it. Morgan Reynolds was ready for it. I hadn't planned to confront Dad at his office, but after a week of angry emails and missed calls, I needed answers. The gleaming corporate building where he worked as CFO felt colder than I remembered. Miss Reynolds, his secretary corrected herself with an apologetic smile. Your father's in a meeting, but it's fine, Sandra. I'll wait. I sat in the reception area, watching executives in pressed suits hurry past. 20 minutes later, I heard his voice before I saw him, that familiar authoritative tone carrying down the hallway. Morgan? Dad stopped short when he saw me. What are you doing here? We need to talk. I stood up, keeping my voice steady. About Leon, about Stanford, about all of it. His face hardened. My office, now. Inside his corner office, with its wall of windows overlooking the city, Dad closed the door and turned to face me. This theatrical name change of yours needs to stop. Like you stopped helping me with college? The words burst out before I could stop them. While you were paying every cent of Leon's tuition? That's different. How? How is it different, Dad? Because he's your son and I'm just your daughter? Don't you dare play that card, he snapped. I gave you everything. You gave me excuses. I pulled out my phone, showing him the tuition receipts I'd found. 4 years at Stanford, full tuition, room and board. Meanwhile, I was working at a coffee shop at 5 a.m. before classes, waiting tables at night, and delivering packages on weekends. Dad sat heavily in his leather chair. You don't understand the complicated. Then explain it to me. Explain why you lied every time I asked for help. Explain why you watched me struggle while secretly supporting Leon. Your mother, he started. Don't, my voice cracked. Don't you dare blame Mom for this. She remortgaged her house to help me with my last semester. She's the one who showed up to every graduation, every achievement, while you were building your new family. A knock at the door interrupted us. Sandra poked her head in. Mr. Fox, your 2 o'clock is here. Reschedule it, Dad said, not taking his eyes off me. After Sandra left, he leaned forward. Morgan, listen. Leon's situation was different. There were obligations. Obligations? I laughed bitterly. What about your obligations to me? I'm still your father. Are you? Because fathers don't do this, Dad. They don't play favorites with their children's futures. He stood up, pacing behind his desk. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. You're too emotional, too much like your mother. Thank God for that, I cut him off. At least I know who I am. At least I'm honest about it. My phone buzzed. A text from Abraham. Everything okay? Remember, dinner with the florist at 6. Dad saw me checking my phone. This wedding, you're really going through with using your mother's name? Yes. And you know what? The more you fight it, the more certain I am that it's the right decision. You'll regret this, Morgan. This childish attempt at revenge. Revenge! I stood up, gathering my purse. This isn't about revenge, Dad. It's about honor. Mom's honor. Mine. The honor you forgot about somewhere between Stanford's tuition bills. As I reached for the door handle, a letter slid under the door. I picked it up. It was addressed to me, but the return address was unfamiliar. What's that? Dad asked, suddenly alert. Nothing that concerns you anymore. I tucked the letter into my purse, watching his face change. He knew something about it. I could tell by the way his jaw tightened. Morgan, wait. No, I'm done waiting. Done making excuses for you. Done pretending that what you did was okay. I opened the door. I'll see you at the wedding. That is, if you can bear to walk a Reynolds down the aisle. In the elevator, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the lobby button. Mom answered on the first ring. How did it go? About as well as expected, I said, fighting tears. But Mom, there's something else. A letter was slipped under his door for me. He reacted weird about it. Come home, she said firmly. We'll open it together. As I walked to my car, I touched the letter in my purse. Whatever it contained, Dad's reaction told me it was important. Maybe even important enough to explain why he'd chosen Leon over me all those years ago. But first, I needed my mother's strength. Because that's what Reynolds women did. We faced things head-on, together. And whatever was in that letter, I knew I'd need all the strength I could get. The coffee shop was quiet for a Saturday morning. I spotted Leon immediately. Tall like Dad, but with a gentleness in his features that Dad never had. He stood when he saw me, awkward and uncertain. Thanks for meeting me, he said as I sat down. The letter that had sparked this meeting lay between us on the table. I almost didn't, I admitted. But that letter, it changes things. I had no idea, Leon said, pushing his coffee cup around. About Stanford, about Dad paying. My mom always said it was her family's money. I pulled out the letter, now worn from repeated reading. Did you know about this? About our grandmother's inheritance? No. He shook his head. But it makes sense now. Why Dad was so insistent I go to Stanford. Why he paid for everything. He was trying to fulfill the conditions. The letter had revealed a twist neither of us expected. Our paternal grandmother had left a substantial inheritance, but with specific conditions. It would only go to the first grandchild who graduated from her alma mater, Stanford University. He manipulated everything, I said, my voice shaking. He made sure you got there, while actively preventing me from having the same chance. A barista brought my Americano, giving us a moment to collect ourselves. Morgan. Leon leaned forward. I would have never accepted his help if I'd known. You have to believe that. I do. And surprisingly, I meant it. But that's not even the worst part. Look at the last paragraph again. Leon picked up the letter, reading aloud. The inheritance shall pass to the first qualifying grandchild bearing the family name Reynolds, in honor of my beloved sister Margaret Reynolds, who sacrificed everything for my education. Reynolds, I repeated. My mother's maiden name. All this time Dad knew. He knew I had more right to that inheritance than anyone, and he deliberately kept me from it. But why would he? Because he couldn't stand the idea of Mom's family name being attached to his mother's money. The realization had hit me like a truck when I first read it. So he made sure you got to Stanford instead. Leon pushed his coffee aside, looking sick. I'll give it back. All of it. The money, the trust fund. It's not about the money anymore. I pulled out my phone, showing him the email Dad had sent that morning. Look what he wrote when I told him I knew about the inheritance. Leon read it aloud. You were never supposed to find out. Your mother's family doesn't deserve that legacy. I did what I had to do. He's still trying to justify it, I said. Still trying to control the narrative. The wedding, Leon said suddenly. That's why he's so upset about you changing your name. Because now I qualify for the inheritance anyway. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. By trying to spite him with Mom's name, I accidentally fulfilled grandmother's conditions. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed, and we both looked up to see Maeve walking in. She'd been texting me nonstop since I told her about the letter. Sorry I'm late, she said, pulling up a chair. Dad's been impossible all morning. He knows you two are meeting. How? I asked. He saw Leon's calendar when he stopped by the house. He's not taking it well. Leon rubbed his face. This is such a mess. Morgan, what can I do? Come to my wedding, I said. Both of you, stand with me, not him. Show him that his games didn't work. They didn't turn us against each other. Of course we'll be there, Maeve said immediately. Won't we, Leon? Leon nodded. Yes, and I'll do you one better. I'll announce at the reception that I'm transferring the inheritance to you. It's rightfully yours anyway. You don't have to. I want to. He reached across the table, taking my hand. Let me fix what Dad broke. My phone buzzed. Another email from Dad. Whatever they're telling you, don't believe them. Come home. We can sort this out as Foxes, not Reynolds. I showed the email to Leon and Maeve. He still doesn't get it, does he? No, Maeve said softly. He really doesn't. The wedding's in 2 weeks, I said, standing up. Dad's going to try something. I can feel it. Then we'll be ready, Leon said, standing with me. All of us, together. As I hugged them goodbye, I felt something shift inside me. The anger was still there, but it was different now. Cleaner, more purposeful. Dad had tried to pit us against each other, but he'd only succeeded in bringing us closer together. Walking to my car, I typed out a reply to Dad's email. You're right about one thing. We will sort this out, at the wedding. All of us, Reynolds and Foxes alike. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The time for hiding truths was over. In 2 weeks, everything would come to light, whether Dad was ready or not. The flowers look perfect, I said, adjusting a centerpiece on the sample table. The wedding venue's grand ballroom was coming together, each detail carefully chosen to honor both my past and future. Morgan! Maeve rushed in, still wearing her work clothes. You need to hear this. She pulled me away from the florist and into a quiet corner. I was at Dad's house picking up some old photos, and I overheard him on the phone. What did he say? He was talking to his lawyer. Something about making a statement at the ceremony and protecting the family legacy. Morgan, he's planning something big. My stomach dropped. Did you hear anything specific? No, but... Maeve was interrupted by Abraham's arrival. Hey, beautiful, he said, kissing my cheek before noticing our serious expressions. What's wrong? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Mom's ringtone. Hey, Mom, can I call you back? I'm at the venue with... Morgan, listen to me. Mom's voice was urgent. Your father just left my house. He came here demanding to see your grandmother's letter. What? Why would he? He said he's filing an injunction to stop the inheritance transfer. He's claiming Leon was coerced. Abraham wrapped an arm around me as I swayed slightly. That's ridiculous, I said. Leon made that decision himself. There's more, Mom continued. He threatened to read a prepared statement at the wedding, exposing what he calls my manipulation of the situation. Maeve, who could hear both sides of the conversation, grabbed my free hand. He can't do this. It's your wedding day. Watch me, a deep voice said from the ballroom entrance. Dad stood there, looking immaculate in his business suit, a manila envelope in his hand. I'll call you back, Mom. I ended the call, squaring my shoulders. What are you doing here? Delivering this. He held up the envelope. A copy of my speech for your wedding. I thought you might want to reconsider your choices before I'm forced to read it. Abraham stepped forward. You're not forcing anything at our wedding. Stay out of this, Dad snapped. This is family business. I am family, Abraham said firmly. Or I will be in 10 days, and I won't let you ruin this for Morgan. The florist awkwardly excused herself, leaving us alone in the ballroom. Dad tossed the envelope onto a nearby table. Read it, he said. Read how your mother poisoned you against me, how she manipulated this entire situation for money. Mom didn't do anything, I exploded. You did this, all of it. You lied about college, hid the inheritance conditions, and now you're trying to blame everyone but yourself. I did what was best for this family. No, Maeve interrupted, surprising everyone. You did what was best for your ego, Dad, and I won't stand with you if you do this. Dad's face reddened. Maeve, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. She moved to stand beside me. And if you go through with this, you'll lose all of us, not just Morgan. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Leon's voice came from the doorway. He walked in, still in his hospital scrubs from work. I got your message, Morgan. I came as soon as I could. Dad looked between his 3 children, his composure cracking slightly. Leon, son, you can't seriously support this betrayal. The only betrayal here is what you did to Morgan, Leon said quietly, and I won't help you hurt her again. I picked up the envelope, holding it out to Dad. Take your speech and go. You have 10 days to decide what's more important, your pride or your children. Don't do this, Morgan. Don't throw away everything for some misguided revenge. This isn't revenge, I said. This is justice. For me, for Mom, for Grandmother's real wishes. Now please leave. Dad straightened his tie, his mask of control slipping back into place. You'll regret this, all of you. After he left, I collapsed into a chair, shaking. Abraham knelt beside me, while Maeve and Leon pulled up chairs. What do we do now? Maeve asked. We stick to the plan, I said, finding strength in their united support. Mom walks me down the aisle. Leon makes his announcement at the reception. And if Dad tries anything, we'll handle it, Leon promised. Together? Abraham squeezed my hand. Should we hire security? No, I decided. That would just prove his point about revenge. We'll face whatever comes with dignity, like Reynolds women always have. The florist cautiously returned, and we all stood up. There was still work to do, details to finalize. But looking at my siblings and fiancé, I felt stronger than ever. 10 days, I said. In 10 days, everything changes. For the better, Maeve added, hugging me tight. And despite everything, I believed her. Because sometimes the family you choose, or who choose you, is stronger than the family you're born into. The rehearsal dinner buzzed with nervous energy. I stood at the entrance of the restaurant's private room, greeting guests while scanning for Dad. He hadn't responded to any messages about whether he'd attend. You look beautiful, sweetheart, Mom said, appearing beside me in a sleek navy dress. Stop worrying about him. I'm not. The words died in my throat as Dad walked in, his new wife, Patricia, trailing behind him. Morgan, he said stiffly. Patricia and I wouldn't miss this Important family gathering. The emphasis on family made my skin crawl. Before I could respond, Abraham's elderly Aunt Martha tottered up to us. "Oh, Morgan, dear, congratulations on the inheritance. Your grandmother would be so proud to see her legacy continuing through the Reynolds name." Dad's face turned purple. Patricia tugged at his sleeve, whispering something, but he shrugged her off. "Actually," he said loudly, "there seems to be some confusion about that inheritance." The room quieted. I felt Mom's hand on my back, steadying me. "Dad?" Leon appeared suddenly. "This isn't the time." "When is the time, son? When you give away your rightful inheritance because of their manipulation?" Abraham stepped forward. "Sir, I respect that you're Morgan's father, but if you can't be civil—" "Civil?" Dad laughed harshly. "Like how civilly they've orchestrated this whole charade. The only charade," Mom's voice cut through the tension, "was you pretending to be a fair father to all your children." Maeve appeared with glasses of champagne, deliberately positioning herself between Dad and me. "Who's ready for a toast?" "Excellent idea," Dad said, taking a glass. "I'd like to say a few words about family loyalty." "Actually," Leon interrupted, clinking his glass, "as the best man, I believe that's my job." The guests turned toward Leon, who stood tall and confident. When Morgan asked me to be her best man, I was surprised. We weren't always close. Circumstances and choices made by others kept us apart. But standing here now, I'm honored to call her my sister, to call her a Reynolds. Dad set his glass down with a sharp crack. "Leon, think carefully about what you're doing." "I have, Dad, for weeks." Leon turned to address the room. "Which is why I'm announcing now, officially, that I'm transferring grandmother's inheritance to its rightful recipient, Morgan Reynolds." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Patricia pulled at Dad's arm again, but he shook her off. "This is ridiculous," he sputtered. "You can't." "Actually, he can," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see an older man in an expensive suit standing in the doorway. "As the executor of your mother's estate, I can confirm that Leon's decision is both legal and binding." "James," Dad said, recognizing his mother's lawyer, "what are you doing here?" "Ensuring your mother's wishes are properly honored," James replied, walking over to me. "Miss Reynolds, congratulations. Your grandmother would have been proud to see her name carried forward by someone who truly understands family loyalty." Dad's face contorted. "This isn't over. I won't let you—" "Let me?" I stepped forward, my voice steady. "You lost the right to let me do anything when you chose deception over honesty, favoritism over fairness." "Morgan." "No, Dad. You've said enough. Tomorrow is my wedding day. You can either attend as a supportive father or not attend at all. Those are your only options now." The room was silent. Dad looked around, perhaps expecting support, but found none. Even Patricia had stepped away from him. "Well," he said finally, his voice cold, "I suppose we'll all see tomorrow what kind of wedding this turns out to be." He turned and stormed out, Patricia hurrying after him. As conversations slowly resumed, Abraham wrapped his arms around me. "You okay?" "Actually, yes." I leaned into him, watching as Leon, Maeve, and Mom gathered around us protectively. "I really am." James handed me a business card. "Call my office next week. We'll sort out all the paperwork then. For now, enjoy your celebration." As he left, Maeve raised her glass again. "To Morgan and Abraham." "To Morgan and Abraham," the room echoed. Later, as guests began to leave, Mom pulled me aside. "I found something in my old papers today. A photo of your grandmother Reynolds, your namesake. She changed her name too, you know, back when women rarely did such things." She showed me the photo on her phone, a strong-faced woman with kind eyes. "She would have loved you, Morgan, and she would have been so proud of how you've handled all of this." I hugged her tight, feeling tears threaten. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." "Get some sleep," she said. "Tomorrow's going to be a big day." Looking around the room at my chosen family, Abraham talking with Leon, Maeve helping clean up, Mom's steady presence beside me. I knew she was right. Tomorrow would be big, whether Dad tried something or not. Because tomorrow wasn't just about getting married. It was about claiming my identity, my inheritance, and my future. All on my own terms. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and clear. I sat at my childhood bedroom vanity while the makeup artist worked, watching Mom flip through a worn leather journal. "Mom?" I caught her expression in the mirror. "What's wrong?" She closed the journal quickly. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just some old memories." "Is that grandmother's journal?" Maeve asked, walking in with coffee cups. "The one you found in the attic?" Mom hesitated, then opened the journal again. "There's something you both need to see." She turned to a marked page. "I found this entry last night. It's about your father." I waved the makeup artist away for a moment and took the journal. The handwriting was elegant but firm. "Cruz visited today, asking about the inheritance conditions. He seemed particularly concerned about Monica's family name being included. I fear he may try to manipulate the situation to his advantage. I should have been more explicit in my wishes." "When was this written?" I asked, my hands shaking. 3 months before she died," Mom said quietly. "Before you were even born." "He knew," Maeve whispered. "He knew all along, from the very beginning." A knock at the door interrupted us. Leon poked his head in. "Everything okay? Abraham's asking." "Look at this." I thrust the journal at him. Leon read quickly, his face darkening. "That son of a..." "He planned this, all of it, from the moment you were born." "Has anyone heard from him this morning?" Maeve asked. "Patricia called," Leon said. "They're coming. She said he's been in his study all night, working on something." "The speech," I said, turning back to the mirror. "He's really going to do it." "Let him try," Mom said firmly. "We have the truth now. His words can't hurt us anymore." The makeup artist resumed her work while we fell into tense silence. Another knock came. This time it was Abraham. "No peeking," Maeve called out. "I'm not looking." His voice came through the door. "Morgan, can we talk for a minute?" Through the door. Everyone cleared the room, leaving me alone. I moved to the door, pressing my hand against it. "I'm here." "You okay? With everything that's happening?" "I'm scared," I admitted. "Not about marrying you. Never about that. But Dad." "I talked to security. They'll remove him if he causes a scene." "That might make it worse. Then we'll handle it. Together." I could hear his smile. "Like we'll handle everything else." "I love you," I said softly. "I love you too. See you at the altar, Morgan Reynolds." As his footsteps faded, Mom and Maeve returned with my dress. It was simple and elegant, with delicate lace that reminded me of old family photos. "Found something else," Mom said, holding up a small blue brooch. "Your grandmother wore this at her wedding. It's always been passed down through Reynolds women." As she pinned it to my dress, another knock came. This time it was Patricia. "Morgan?" She looked uncomfortable. "Can we talk?" Mom stiffened, but I nodded. Patricia closed the door behind her. "Your father, he's not in a good place. The speech he's written, it's cruel, vindictive. I tried to talk him out of it, but he won't listen," I finished. "No." She twisted her hands. "I'm sorry, for everything. For not seeing it sooner, for not stopping him. It's not your fault. Maybe not. But I want you to know, I won't stand with him when he does this. I can't." Tears threatened to ruin my makeup. "Thank you." Patricia hugged me quickly, then left. Mom immediately began fixing my makeup. "Well," Maeve said, "that was unexpected." "Everything about this is unexpected," I laughed shakily. "Did you ever think we'd be here, like this?" "Yes," Mom said simply. "From the moment you decided to take back your name, our name, I knew we'd end up here, standing together, stronger than ever." Leon returned with a message from the wedding planner. It was time. Mom helped me with my veil while Maeve adjusted my train. "Ready?" Leon asked, offering his arm to escort me downstairs. I took one last look in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't just a bride. She was a Reynolds, through and through. Whatever Dad had planned, whatever speech he intended to give, he couldn't take that away from me. "Ready," I said. As we left the room, I caught a glimpse of Dad arriving downstairs, clutching a folder I assumed contained his speech. Our eyes met briefly, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in his expression. Regret, perhaps? Or recognition of what he was about to lose. But it was too late for regret now. The music was starting, and my future was waiting at the end of that aisle. The wedding march began, but not the traditional one. Instead, the string quartet played my grandmother Reynolds' favorite song, a detail I'd discovered in her journal. Mom took my arm, and we stood at the back of the church. "Last chance to elope," she whispered, making me laugh. As we started down the aisle, I saw Dad shift in his front row seat, that folder clutched in his hands. But my eyes were drawn to Abraham, standing at the altar with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. Leon stood beside him as best man, while Maeve waited on my side. Halfway down the aisle, Dad stood up. "I object to this farce," he announced loudly. The music screeched to a halt. Mom's grip on my arm tightened. "Cruz," she warned. "Don't. The ceremony hasn't even started," the officiant said. "There's nothing to object to yet." "I object to all of it," Dad continued, opening his folder. "To this manipulation, this theft of inheritance, this mockery of our family name." Abraham started down the steps, but I shook my head slightly. This was my battle. "Morgan," Dad turned to face me. "I've prepared a statement explaining exactly how your mother orchestrated this entire situation." "No," I said clearly, my voice carrying through the church. "You don't get to rewrite history today." "I have proof." "We have proof too," I cut him off. "Grandmother's journal. We found it." The folder trembled in his hands. "What?" "She wrote about you, Dad. About how you came to her, worried about Mom's family name being in the inheritance conditions. How you planned to manipulate everything from the start." Murmurs rippled through the guests. Patricia stood up from beside Dad's empty seat and walked to the back of the church. "You don't understand," Dad's voice cracked. "I was protecting our legacy." "By lying to your daughter?" Leon stepped forward. "By making her work 3 jobs while I got a free ride?" "By hiding her birthright?" Mom added. "The Reynolds name she should have been proud of from the beginning?" Dad looked around the church, perhaps finally realizing how alone he stood. "I did what I thought was right." "No," I said, letting go of Mom's arm and walking toward him. "You did what was easy, what fed your ego, and now you're trying to ruin my wedding day because you can't stand that your plan failed." "Morgan," "I'm not finished." I took the folder from his hands. "You have 2 choices right now, Dad. Sit down and be part of this wedding, or leave. But you will not read this speech. You will not hurt this family anymore." The church was silent. Dad looked at the folder in my hands, then at my face. For the first time, I saw him really see me. Not as his defiant daughter, but as a Reynolds woman standing her ground. "The choice is yours," I said quietly, "but choose carefully, because this is the last chance you get." Seconds ticked by. Finally, Dad's shoulders slumped. Without a word, he walked down the aisle and out of the church. Patricia followed him. I handed the folder to Mom, who promptly dropped it in a decorative trash bin by the door. A few chuckles broke the tension. "Well," the officiant said, "shall we begin?" "Actually," I turned to address our guests, "I'd like to say something first." I looked at the faces before me. Abraham's supportive smile, Leon and Maeve's proud grins, Mom's tears of joy. Today isn't just about marriage. It's about family. The one we're born into and the one we choose. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. My grandmother Reynolds understood that. She wrote in her journal about the power of choosing your own path, your own name, your own destiny. I touched the blue brooch on my dress. "This belongs to the Reynolds women. Strong women who weren't afraid to stand up for themselves. Today, I stand here as Morgan Reynolds, carrying their legacy forward. And I'm marrying a man who understands and supports that legacy. Abraham's eyes shone with tears. Mom squeezed my hand. Now, I smiled at the officiant, we can begin. The ceremony that followed was everything I'd dreamed of. When Abraham kissed me, the church erupted in cheers. As we turned to face our guests as husband and wife, I saw Leon slip out his phone to check something. He grinned and showed me the screen, a bank notification. The inheritance transfer was complete. Perfect timing, he whispered. Walking back down the aisle, I felt lighter than air. Dad's empty seat didn't matter. His absence didn't diminish this moment. If anything, it proved I'd made the right choice. Because sometimes the strongest family ties aren't the ones we're born with, but the ones we fight for. And I'd fought for mine, every step of the way. The sunset painted the beach in golden hues as Abraham and I walked along the shore of our honeymoon resort. A message from Maeve lit up my phone. You need to see this. She'd attached a photo of a newspaper article. The headline made me stop walking. Local CFO steps down amid family controversy. Dad resigned? I showed Abraham the phone. Keep reading, he said, peering over my shoulder. The article detailed how Dad had left his position, citing personal reasons. But the part that caught my breath was his quoted statement. Recent events have made me reevaluate my priorities and the true meaning of legacy. My phone rang. Mom's face appeared on the screen. Did you see it? She asked when I answered. I'm looking at it now. What happened? Patricia called me this morning. Apparently, after the wedding, your father locked himself in his study for days. When he finally emerged, he'd written 2 letters. One to the board announcing his resignation, and one to us. To us. It just arrived. I haven't opened it yet. I wanted to wait for you. Abraham squeezed my hand. We can fly back early if you want. I shook my head. No, Mom, open it. Read it to me. I heard paper rustling, then Mom's intake of breath. It's different from what I expected. He writes, to my family, all of you. I've spent decades building what I thought was a legacy, only to realize I was destroying the most important one I had, my children's trust. Morgan's wedding showed me what true strength looks like. It's not in controlling others or manipulating outcomes. It's in standing firm for what you believe in, as she did, as her grandmother Reynolds did. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you'll accept my resignation from the company as the first step toward making amends. The Reynolds inheritance belongs where it is, with Morgan. I see that now. My legs felt weak. Abraham guided me to sit on the sand. There's more, Mom continued. To Monica, you raised our daughter to be stronger than I ever was. To Leon and Maeve, thank you for showing me what sibling loyalty truly means. And to Morgan, you are your grandmother's granddaughter in every way that matters. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that. The waves crashed softly against the shore as I absorbed his words. Why, he signed it with both his names, Mom said quietly. Cruz Fox Reynolds. He added his mother's name back. My phone buzzed with another message from Leon. Dad just called me. He's starting therapy. Says he wants to earn his way back into our lives if we'll let him. What do you think? Abraham asked gently. I think. I watched the sun sink lower over the ocean. I think forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and healing isn't the same as erasing the past. Mom was still on the line. Whatever you decide, we're all with you. Reynolds women make their own choices, remember? I smiled, touching the blue brooch I'd pinned to my beach cover-up. I know, Mom. Tell everyone I'll call them tomorrow. Right now, I want to watch the sunset with my husband. After saying goodbye, I leaned into Abraham's embrace. Did I ever tell you what else was in Grandmother's journal? What? She wrote about love, about how the strongest marriages are built on trust and understanding, about how her husband supported her decision to keep her name, even back then when it was scandalous. Smart woman, Abraham grinned. Must run in the family. She also wrote about forgiveness. Not the easy kind that comes with a simple sorry, but the hard kind. The kind that takes work and time and proof. And is that what you want? To give him that chance? I picked up a seashell, turning it over in my hands. I want to be strong enough to try. Not for him, but for me. For us. For the family we might have someday. Abraham kissed my temple. That sounds pretty wise to me, Mrs. Reynolds. You know what the best part is? I stood up, pulling him with me. We get to write our own story now. No manipulation, no hidden agendas. Just us, choosing our path together. Speaking of choosing, he grinned, I choose to take my gorgeous wife to dinner. The restaurant's holding our sunset reservation. As we walked back toward the resort, I felt at peace. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. Not because all wounds were healed. They weren't. But because I finally understood what Grandmother Reynolds had written about in her journal. True legacy isn't in names or inheritances. It's in the strength to forge your own path, the wisdom to learn from the past, and the courage to face the future on your own terms. And standing there, watching the last rays of sun paint the sky in brilliant colors, I knew I was ready for whatever that future might bring.
I stared at the first-class tickets to Venice in my hands, wondering if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. My mother's voice echoed through my apartment, complaining about the coffee I'd just served her. Teresa, darling, you know I can't drink this generic brand. I thought with your fancy job you could at least afford decent coffee. That's me. Teresa, 32, successful marketing executive and still desperately trying to please my impossible mother. I tucked the tickets into my blazer pocket and took a deep breath. Mom, I have something for you, I said, walking back to the living room where she sat perched on my cream sofa like it might bite her. If it's more coffee, I'll pass. She wrinkled her nose, pushing the full cup away. Actually, it's something better. I pulled out the tickets and held them up. Happy early birthday. Her eyes widened, perfectly manicured fingers snatching the tickets from my hand. Venice? First class? For once, she was speechless. You always talked about wanting to go, remember? When I was little, you'd show me pictures in those travel magazines. That was before your father left us for that waitress, she said sharply. Before I had to work 2 jobs to support you. I bit back a retort. She'd been playing the martyr card for 20 years, conveniently forgetting the child support checks and alimony that had paid for her shopping sprees. Well, now you can finally go, I said, forcing brightness into my voice. We can go together. 2 weeks in Venice, staying at the Belmond Hotel Cipriani. Everything's arranged. She examined the tickets closely, her expression unreadable. This must have cost a fortune. I've been saving. I thought it would be nice for us to spend some time together. She set the tickets down carefully. When do we leave? Next week. I've already cleared it with work and... Next week? She stood up abruptly. That's too soon. I need time to prepare, to shop. You can't expect me to just drop everything. Mom, please, I checked your schedule with Linda at the salon. You don't have any appointments that can't be rescheduled. She narrowed her eyes. You went behind my back? I wanted it to be a surprise. I felt that familiar knot forming in my stomach, the one that always appeared when she started finding problems with my efforts. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. Did you tell her yet? How'd she take it? I ignored it for now. Isabella had warned me this might not go as planned, but I'd insisted on trying. After all, everyone deserves a second chance, right? Well, my mother said finally, picking up the tickets again. I suppose I could make it work, but I'll need new luggage and clothes. You can't expect me to show up at a 5-star hotel looking like a tourist. I've thought of that too. I reached for my purse and pulled out a gift card. For that boutique you like on 5th Avenue. Her eyes lit up. The first genuine smile I'd seen all morning. She took the gift card, running her finger along its edge. You really did think of everything, didn't you? I want this to be special, Mom. A fresh start for us. She stood up, gathering her designer handbag. Well, I better get shopping then. These things take time to plan properly. As I walked her to the door, she surprised me with a quick hug. You're a good daughter, Teresa. Sometimes I forget that. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Praise and guilt all wrapped up in one neat package. Classic mom. After she left, I finally replied to Isabella's text. She said yes. Meeting tomorrow for lunch? Isabella's response was immediate. Absolutely. Need to discuss contingency plans. I smiled, thinking of the precautions I'd already taken. The separate copies of all important documents safely stored with Isabella, the emergency funds set aside, the hotel manager already briefed. Just in case. Because while I wanted to believe this trip would heal our relationship, 20 years of disappointment had taught me to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. Looking at my mother's untouched coffee cup, I remembered something she used to say when I was little. Trust is earned, not given. Well, Mom, I thought, picking up the cup. I guess we'll both find out if you've earned it. I dumped the coffee in the sink, watching the dark liquid swirl down the drain. 1 week until Venice. 1 week until either everything changed for the better, or I learned once and for all that some relationships couldn't be fixed, no matter how much money or effort you threw at them. Either way, at least I'd know. Final boarding call for Flight 789 to Venice Marco Polo Airport. I checked my watch again, pacing near the gate. My mother was 20 minutes late, and my calls kept going straight to voicemail. A cold feeling crept into my stomach, but I pushed it away. She wouldn't. She couldn't. Miss? The gate agent caught my attention. We need to close the doors. Please, just 5 more minutes. My mother... I'm sorry, but we can't delay the flight. Swallowing hard, I handed over my boarding pass. As I walked down the jet bridge, I sent one last text. Mom, I'm boarding. Please tell me you're already on the plane. The first-class cabin was half empty. I scanned the seats, hoping to see her familiar blonde head, but she wasn't there. A flight attendant approached with a sympathetic smile. Can I help you find someone? My mother. We're traveling together. She should be in 2A. The attendant checked her tablet. I'm sorry, but no one has checked in for that seat. My hands started shaking as I sank into my seat. This wasn't happening. I pulled out my phone one last time before the doors closed, dialing Isabella. Bella, she's not here. What? Did she miss the flight? I don't know. She's not answering her phone. Could you already on it? I'll check her house, call around. The flight attendant gestured for me to end the call. We'll figure this out, Isabella said quickly. Just try to rest during the flight. 8 hours later, I stumbled through Marco Polo Airport, exhausted and worried sick. That's when I saw her. My mother standing at the baggage claim, collecting her designer suitcase. Mom, I called out, relief flooding through me. What happened? Why didn't you... She turned, and for a split second, I caught a flash of something in her eyes. Guilt? Triumph? Before she bolted toward the exit. Mom, wait. I chased after her, dragging my carry-on. As I reached for my passport at the customs checkpoint, my blood ran cold. My travel wallet was missing. The one containing my passport, cash, and credit cards. No. I emptied my purse onto a nearby bench. Nothing. Through the glass doors, I watched helplessly as my mother jumped into a waiting taxi. Miss? A customs officer approached. Is everything all right? My mother, I couldn't even finish the sentence. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Darling, did you really think I'd let you play the hero? Venice was always my dream, not our dream. Don't worry, I'll put your money to good use. Consider it payback for all those years I sacrificed for you. Love, Mom. My legs gave out and I collapsed onto the bench. A young woman sitting nearby looked up from her book. Hey, are you okay? I shook my head, tears finally spilling over. My mother? She stole my passport and money. She's gone. Oh my God. The woman moved closer. I'm Presley. Let me help. We should talk to the police. The police? I laughed bitterly. In a foreign country? She's my mother. They'll never believe me. My phone buzzed again. Isabella. Teresa, your mom's house is empty. All her stuff is gone. What's happening? With trembling fingers, I typed, "She took everything. The passport, the emergency cash. She planned this all along." "Check your email," Isabella replied instantly. "Remember Plan B?" I pulled up my email, and there it was. A folder labeled Venice Emergency. Inside were scans of my passport, copies of police reports I'd filed months ago documenting my mother's previous attempts at financial fraud, and contact information for Zachary, the hotel manager I'd briefed about potential issues. Presley was still sitting beside me, her face concerned. "Look," she said, "I'm staying at the Bellman, too. Let me help you get there, and we can figure this out." My phone buzzed one more time. Isabella again. "Already called the hotel. Zachary's expecting her. Remember what we discussed? Let her think she's won. The higher she climbs, the harder she'll fall." I took a deep breath, wiping away my tears. "Thank you," I said to Presley. "I'd appreciate that ride." As we walked to the taxi stand, I thought about my mother's text. "Payback," she'd said. Well, Mom, I thought, you're not the only one who knows how to play the long game. You taught me well. Maybe too well. "The Belmond Hotel Cipriani, please," I told the driver, my voice steady now. Let her think she'd won. Let her enjoy her moment of triumph. Because what my mother didn't know was that her perfect plan had just triggered an avalanche she'd never see coming. The water taxi cut through Venice's Grand Canal, but I barely noticed the stunning architecture surrounding us. Presley sat beside me, already proving herself invaluable by lending me her phone charger and helping me contact the U.S. Embassy. "So your mom's been planning this for months?" she asked, shaking her head in disbelief. "Looks that way. The desk clerk at her building said she'd been slowly moving things out for weeks." My phone rang. Isabella again. I put her on speaker. "Teresa, I've got news. Your mother tried to use your credit card at Gucci 10 minutes ago, the one we left active." "Perfect." I managed a small smile. "Is everything in place at the hotel?" "Zachary's got it all under control. He said she checked in an hour ago, using your reservation. She's in for quite a surprise when she tries to charge anything to the room." Presley leaned forward. "Wait, you knew this might happen? Let's just say my mother has a history." I showed her the folder on my phone. These are records of her previous incidents. The time she emptied my college fund, the jewelry she borrowed and sold, the credit cards she opened in my name. "That's horrible," Presley said. "Why didn't you press charges?" "Because she's my mother, and because I was stupid enough to keep believing she'd change." The water taxi pulled up to the Bellman's private dock. Zachary was already waiting there, his tall figure impossible to miss in his impeccable suit. "Miss Teresa," he said, helping me onto the dock. "We've been expecting you. Your mother seems quite comfortable in the presidential suite." "The presidential suite?" I raised an eyebrow. "I booked the garden view room. She insisted on an upgrade. Attempted to charge it to your card, naturally." He smiled thinly. "We declined, but allowed her to stay there temporarily. We thought you might want to surprise her." My phone buzzed with another text from my mother. "The view from up here is divine, darling. You should see how the sunset hits the water." "Oh, wait, you can't." I showed the text to Zachary, who shook his head in disapproval. "We have security footage of her arrival," he said, "and of her attempting to use your cards. The police have been notified, but they're waiting for your signal before approaching." Presley touched my arm. "I have to check in, but my room is on the 3rd floor if you need anything. Room 312. "Thank you," I said sincerely, "for everything." After she left, Zachary led me to his office. Isabella's face appeared on his computer screen via video call. "Okay," Isabella said. "Time to review the plan. Teresa, are you sure about this? We can still call the police right now." I thought about all the years of manipulation, the countless times I'd forgiven her, the way she'd smiled when I gave her those tickets. "No, she needs to learn. Really learn this time. All right then. Isabella pulled up a document. The hotel's security cameras are all active. We've got copies of her fraudulent charges. The embassy's sending over temporary documents. And I've contacted some interesting people from her past who are very eager to share their stories. Zachary handed me a room key. You'll be in the executive suite, one floor below her. We've disabled her room keys. She'll need to come to the front desk to get back in if she leaves. Perfect. I checked my watch. She'll be heading to dinner soon. She never misses a chance to be seen in a fancy restaurant. The Oro restaurant is fully booked, Zachary confirmed. But mysteriously, there's one table available, right in the center of the room. Isabella's voice turned serious. Teresa, remember, let her dig herself deeper. Let her think she's untouchable. The higher she climbs, the harder she'll fall. I finished. I remember. A knock at the office door made us all jump. Presley poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you should know. Your mother's heading to the restaurant, and she's wearing what looks like a very expensive new dress. I stood up, smoothing my travel-wrinkled clothes. Time to get ready, then. Your luggage has been delivered to your room, Zachary said, including the dress Isabella had sent over. I looked at my best friend's face on the screen. You thought of everything, didn't you? That's what best friends are for. She grinned. Now go get changed. Your mother wants to make a scene? Let's give her one she'll never forget. As I headed to my room, I felt strangely calm. Maybe because for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to win my mother's approval. I wasn't trying to fix her or change her or understand her. I was simply going to show her exactly what it felt like to be on the receiving end of betrayal. And thanks to my friends, old and new, I wouldn't have to do it alone. The Oro restaurant glittered with candlelight and wealth. I stood in the entrance, wearing the sleek black dress Isabella had chosen, watching my mother hold court at the center table. She'd already gathered an audience, 2 older couples hanging on her every word. And then I said to my daughter, she was saying, gesturing with her wine glass, Darling, you work too hard. Let me handle the travel arrangements. I moved closer, silent in my heels. The poor dear is so consumed with her career, she barely has time for family, she continued, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. That's why I insisted on taking this trip. Someone has to show her how to enjoy life. How generous of you, I said loudly, making her jump. Please, Mom, tell them more about how you're spending my money. The color drained from her face. Teresa, I thought you couldn't make it. Clearly. I turned to her new friends. Did she tell you how she got here? About stealing my passport and credit cards? The couples exchanged uncomfortable glances. Teresa, darling, you're making a scene. My mother hissed, her smile strained. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Why? You didn't seem concerned about privacy when you left me stranded at the airport. Zachary appeared at my side. Is everything all right here? My mother's face brightened. Yes. I was just about to order another bottle of wine. The 82 Bordeaux, I think. I'm afraid that won't be possible, madam. Your credit cards have been declined and the room charges have been suspended. There must be some mistake. She reached for her purse, my travel wallet, but I was faster. Looking for this? I held up a second wallet, identical to the one she'd stolen. Amazing what you can do with a color printer and some basic crafting skills. Her eyes widened as she opened her stolen wallet, finding only carefully crafted replicas of my cards and documents. The real ones are safe with Isabella, I said, along with evidence of every fraudulent charge you've tried to make today. The other diners were openly staring now. My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. How dare you embarrass me like this, after everything I've done for you? You mean like emptying my college fund? Or maxing out the credit cards you opened in my name when I was 18? I paid those back. With money you stole from your sister. Yes, Aunt Sarah told me everything. She grabbed her purse. I don't have to listen to this. I'm going to my room. Your room? Zachary stepped forward. I believe you mean the presidential suite that you attempted to charge to a fraudulent credit card? I'm afraid we'll need you to vacate immediately. You can't do this to me. She looked around wildly, but her dinner companions were suddenly very interested in their meals. Security is waiting to escort you out, Zachary said calmly. Unless you'd prefer we call the police? My mother's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little... Careful, Mom. I nodded toward the security cameras. Everything's being recorded. She straightened her spine, trying to salvage her dignity. Fine, I'll leave. But don't think this is over. Oh, it's not, I agreed. We're just getting started. By the way, how many of your new friends here know about the Williams family? She froze. You wouldn't. Tomorrow's another day, Mom. And I learned from the best how to destroy someone's reputation. 2 security guards appeared at the restaurant entrance. My mother marched past them, head held high, but I caught the tremor in her hands. Your mother's belongings have been removed from the suite, Zachary murmured. We've arranged a room for her at a more suitable hotel across town. Perfect. I sat down at her abandoned table, picking up her half-empty wine glass. And the other arrangements? All in place for tomorrow's gala. Several guests are particularly interested in meeting your mother. I smiled, taking a sip of wine. Excellent. My phone buzzed. Isabella sending a video link. Security footage from the hotel lobby showed my mother trying to argue at the front desk, then being escorted out by security, her designer suitcases wheeled behind her. Sweet dreams, Mom, I whispered, raising the glass in a mock toast. Tomorrow's going to be a day you'll never forget. Across the restaurant, Presley caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up. Other diners were whispering, phones out, no doubt sharing the evening's drama on social media. Let them talk. Let the story spread. Because tomorrow, at the hotel's prestigious summer gala, they'd learn what my mother was really capable of. Not just from me, but from every person she'd ever betrayed. And this time, there would be nowhere left for her to run. The hotel's grand ballroom buzzed with Venice's elite, champagne flowing freely as string musicians played in the corner. I stood near the entrance with Presley, watching my mother work the room. Despite last night's humiliation, she'd managed to talk her way into the gala, dressed in what I recognized as my missing Valentino gown. Your mother's got nerve, I'll give her that, Presley whispered. Just wait. I checked my phone. Isabella, are we ready? Everyone's in position. Isabella's voice came through my earpiece. The Williams family just arrived. And guess who else showed up? Robert from the investment firm. My mother's former boss, the one whose signature she'd forged on company documents. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, Zachary's voice boomed through the speakers. Welcome to our annual summer gala. Right on cue, the massive screens around the ballroom lit up with security footage from yesterday. My mother attempting to use stolen credit cards, throwing a tantrum at the front desk, being escorted out. The crowd fell silent. My mother froze mid-conversation, her champagne glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the marble floor. Some of you may recognize this woman, I said, stepping onto the small stage. Giselle, my mother, expert con artist, master manipulator, and tonight's guest of honor. Teresa, stop this immediately. She tried to march toward me, but 2 security guards blocked her path. Why stop? You always taught me to finish what I start. I gestured to the screens. And we're just getting started. Would anyone like to hear about the Williams Family Trust Fund? An elderly couple stepped forward, the Williams looking exactly as their photos showed. She convinced our grandson to invest his entire inheritance in a fake company, Mrs. Williams said, her voice shaking with anger. He was only 19. That's a lie, my mother shouted. Teresa, how dare you arrange this circus? Is it a lie, Giselle? A man in an expensive suit emerged from the crowd. Robert, looking older but just as intimidating as I remembered. Like the documents you forged with my signature? The ones that lost my clients millions? The whispers grew louder. My mother's face had gone chalk white. Or perhaps, I continued, we should ask Linda about the charity fundraiser money that mysteriously disappeared. Linda, a woman in her 60s, stepped forward. $300,000 meant for children's cancer research. Gone. This is ridiculous, My mother sputtered. These people are all lying. Teresa is trying to ruin me because she's jealous of my success. Success? I laughed. Let's talk about success, Mom. Show them the accounts, Isabella. The screens changed to display bank statements, credit card bills, loan documents, all showing a pattern of theft and fraud spanning decades. Your success was built on stealing from others, including your own daughter. I turned to the crowd. She emptied my college fund when I was 17, opened credit cards in my name, and just yesterday she stole my passport and tried to strand me at the airport. You ungrateful little... She lunged forward, but the guards held firm. Ungrateful? A new voice rang out. Aunt Sarah emerged from the crowd. Like you were ungrateful when our parents left me the house? When you forged my signature to take out a second mortgage? My mother's carefully constructed facade began to crack. Sarah, please. The police are waiting outside, Zachary announced, along with representatives from 3 different banks' fraud departments. You can't prove anything, my mother said desperately, but her voice wavered. Actually, we can. I nodded to Isabella, who had just entered the ballroom. Every document, every fraud, every lie. We have proof of all of it. And thanks to your performance tonight, we have dozens of witnesses. The crowd had formed a circle around my mother, their faces showing disgust and recognition as they connected her to various scams and schemes they'd heard about. This isn't over, she hissed, but the threat sounded hollow. You're right, Mom. It's not over. It's just beginning. The police want to talk to you about identity theft. The banks want to discuss fraud. And I'm sure all these lovely people have their own questions. As the police entered the ballroom, my mother did something I'd never seen before. She began to cry. Not her usual calculated tears, but genuine, messy sobs. Teresa, please. I'm your mother. Yes, you are. And you taught me everything I know about revenge. I turned away as the police approached her, including how to serve it cold. The crowd parted as they led her out, her mascara running, my stolen dress dragging on the floor. Years of carefully crafted lies and manipulation, unraveling in a single night. Isabella hugged me tightly. You okay? I watched my mother's retreating figure, feeling nothing but a profound sense of relief. I'm free, I said simply. For the first time in my life, I'm actually free. The morning after the gala, I sat in Zachary's office with Isabella, Presley, and a growing group of my mother's victims. The Williams family brought coffee and pastries. Linda from the Charity Foundation had files stretching back 15 years. Aunt Sarah clutched a stack of forged documents. The police found her trying to book a flight to Switzerland, Isabella announced, hanging up her phone. Using another stolen credit card, of course. Some people never learn. Aunt Sarah sighed, spreading her papers across the desk. Look at this. She even forged Mom's signature on her will, a week before she died. Linda leaned forward. That matches her pattern. She targeted my foundation right after my husband passed away. She knew I'd be too grief-stricken to notice the missing funds. She waited until our grandson was dealing with a bad breakup. Mrs. Williams added. She always struck when people were vulnerable. My phone buzzed. A call from an unknown number. I put it on speaker. Teresa? My mother's voice, smaller than I'd ever heard it. They're keeping me at the station. You have to help me. Like you helped me at the airport? That was different. I'm your mother. You can't let them do this to me. Aunt Sarah grabbed the phone. Giselle, you remember that summer house you convinced Dad to sign over to you? The police found some interesting documents in the safe there. Silence then. Sarah, what are you doing there? Having a lovely chat with your other victims. Did you really think Teresa was the only one you hurt? You don't understand, my mother pleaded. I had no choice. After Richard left me... Stop. I took the phone back. Dad left because he caught you embezzling from his company. He didn't abandon us. You drove him away. That's not true. I talked to him last night, Mom. For the first time in 20 years. Want to know what he said? More silence. He told me about the money you stole, the clients you defrauded. He tried to protect me by taking the blame, letting me think he was the bad guy who abandoned us. Teresa, please. The police have his statement now, along with statements from everyone else in this room. Do you want to know how many people came forward after the gala? How many lives you destroyed? A choked sob came through the speaker. I can explain everything. Save it for your lawyer. I ended the call. Mrs. Williams touched my hand gently. You're nothing like her, dear. Standing up to her took real courage. She's right, Presley said. I've only known you a few days, but I've seen how different you are from her. Isabella pulled up something on her laptop. Speaking of differences, you should see this. She turned the screen to show a news website. The headline read, International con artist exposed at Venice Hotel Gala. Decades of fraud uncovered. It's going viral, Isabella said. People are coming forward from all over. That charity scam in Paris? The real estate fraud in London? All her. The detective wants to meet with everyone, Zachary added, entering with fresh coffee. They're building a case for international fraud charges. Linda stood up, straightening her jacket. Well, I for one am ready to tell them everything. 20 years of silence is enough. One by one, they left for the police station, each carrying their pieces of my mother's elaborate web of lies. Finally, only Isabella, Presley, and I remained. What happens now? Presley asked. I walked to the window, watching boats cruise down the canal. Now we make sure she can't hurt anyone else. The banks are freezing all her accounts, Isabella reported, and they're investigating everyone she worked with. Your dad's helping track down her overseas assets. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. This time, a text. Your father was weak. You're weak too. You think this is over? I raised you, Teresa. I made you who you are. You'll never be free of me. I showed the message to Isabella, who immediately started typing on her laptop. Got it. Sending this to the detective now. She's not supposed to contact you. She's scared, Presley observed. That's why she's lashing out. Good. I deleted the message. She should be scared, because tomorrow every single person in this room is meeting with the prosecutor, and we all have stories to tell. Isabella closed her laptop with a satisfied smile. Want to know the best part? That Valentino dress she wore to the gala? The security cameras caught her stealing it from your room. That's another charge to add to the list. For the first time since this all began, I laughed. Really laughed. Because my mother was right about one thing. She did make me who I am. She taught me to be smart, to be careful, to always have a backup plan. She just never expected me to use those lessons against her. The courthouse in Venice was smaller than I expected. I sat in the front row, watching my mother in her prison-issued clothes, a far cry from her stolen designer wardrobe. The preliminary hearing had drawn a crowd, including every person she'd wronged who could make it to Italy. The prosecution calls Teresa to the stand, the prosecutor announced in Italian, with the court translator echoing in English. As I walked to the witness stand, my mother caught my eye. You don't have to do this, darling, she said softly. Family protects family. Is that what you were doing when you left me stranded at the airport? Her lawyer shushed her as I took my seat. Please state your relationship to the defendant, the prosecutor began. She's my mother, though I use that term loosely now. Can you describe the events that led to her arrest? I recounted everything, the stolen passport, the credit cards, the elaborate setup at the hotel. With each detail, my mother's face grew darker. And this wasn't the first incident, was it? The prosecutor prompted. No, when I was 17, she... Objection. My mother suddenly stood up. I demand to speak to my daughter alone. The judge banged his gavel. Sit down, Mrs. O'Connor. You don't understand, she pleaded. She's confused. I was protecting her inheritance. By stealing it? I shot back. By opening credit cards in my name? Everything I did was for you. The judge banged his gavel again. One more outburst and you'll be removed from the court. Isabella squeezed my hand as I continued testifying. I detailed every scheme, every manipulation, every betrayal. The college fund? The forged documents? The stolen identities? And what about your father? The prosecutor asked. He's provided a written statement, I said, explaining how she embezzled from his company and framed him for it. My mother's composure finally cracked. Richard was weak. He would have lost everything if I hadn't taken control. Remove the defendant, the judge ordered. As security approached, my mother turned to the courtroom. You're all weak. None of you understand what it takes to succeed in this world. We understand right from wrong, Aunt Sarah called out. Something you never learned. They led my mother away, but not before she got in one last shot. I made you strong, Teresa. Everything you are is because of me. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Isabella hugged me tight while Presley kept the reporters at bay. You did great, Isabella said, and wait until she finds out about tomorrow's witnesses. How many are testifying? Presley asked. 23 so far, a familiar voice answered. I turned to see my father walking toward us, looking older but still familiar. Dad. I hadn't seen him in person since the phone call. He wrapped me in a hug that felt 20 years overdue. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I should have fought harder for you. You're here now, I said, wiping away tears. That's what matters. The prosecutor approached with new papers. We've found 3 more victims willing to testify, and evidence of fraud in 6 countries. She'll never get out, will she? I asked. Not for a very long time. Back in the courtroom, my mother sat subdued, finally seeming to grasp the gravity of her situation. Her lawyer looked overwhelmed by the mounting evidence. The prosecution calls Richard to the stand, the translator announced. My father squared his shoulders and walked forward. My mother's head snapped up. Richard, please. She tried one last time. Think about our family. I am, he said firmly. That's why I'm here. As he began to testify about the company fraud, I watched my mother's face. For the first time in my life, I saw real fear there. Not manipulation, not calculated tears, but genuine terror as her carefully constructed world crumbled. Would you like to make a statement? The judge asked her when my father finished. She stood slowly, looking around the courtroom at all the faces of those she'd betrayed. Her voice, when it came, was barely audible. I don't know how to be any other way. That's not an excuse, I said clearly. That's why you're here. The judge nodded. We'll resume tomorrow with additional witnesses. As they led my mother back to her cell, she looked over her shoulder at me one last time. I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes. Recognition. Not of me as her daughter, her victim, or her downfall, but of herself, reflected back in all her broken pieces. The woman who thought she could control everything was finally, completely powerless. And I was finally, completely free. The verdict came down like a thunderclap. 20 years in prison, no possibility of parole for at least 15. Multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, and grand larceny across 6 countries. As the judge read out the sentence, my mother sat perfectly still, her face a blank mask. Do you have any final words for the court? The judge asked. She stood slowly, turning not to the judge but to me. I thought I was teaching you to survive, to be strong. I didn't realize I was teaching you how to destroy me. You destroyed yourself, Mom. I just showed everyone the truth. The bailiff stepped forward to lead her away, but she resisted for a moment. Will you visit me? No. One word. Simple, final, free. They let her out, and the courtroom erupted in quiet conversation. Isabella squeezed my hand while Presley hugged me from the other side. My father stood nearby, talking with Aunt Sarah. Miss Teresa? Zachary appeared at my elbow. There's something you should see. He led our group to the courthouse steps where dozens of people waited. More victims, more stories, more lives touched by my mother's web of deceit. They all came forward after the news broke. Isabella explained. Some traveled from as far as Australia. A young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. Thank you, she said. My grandmother lost everything to your mother's investment scam. Now we can finally get closure. One by one, they shared their stories. Each one felt like a weight lifting, a chain breaking, a wound healing. What happens now? Presley asked as we walked back to the hotel. Now? I looked at the sunset over Venice's canals, the view my mother had tried to steal. Now we heal. All of us. In the hotel lobby, Zachary handed me a letter. This arrived for you. The return address was the women's prison. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. My dearest Teresa, it began. By the time you read this, I'll have been sentenced. I won't ask for forgiveness. We both know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that in the end, you proved me wrong. I thought love was weakness. You proved it was strength. You gathered an army of broken people and made them whole again. You turned my victims into warriors. You are everything I never could be. Strong without being cruel. Powerful without being destructive. I'm not sorry for what I did. I don't know how to be. But I am proud of what you've become, even if it meant becoming my downfall. Maybe that's the only good thing I ever did. Creating the person who would finally stop me. Goodbye, my darling daughter. Make a better life than I did. Love, Mom. I handed the letter to Isabella, who read it and passed it around. Do you believe her? My father asked gently. It doesn't matter, I replied. Her words don't have power over me anymore. The hotel restaurant had prepared a special dinner for our group, all the people who'd helped bring my mother to justice. As we sat down, Isabella raised her glass. To Teresa, who turned a nightmare into a revolution. To justice, Aunt Sarah added. To freedom, my father said. I looked around the table at these faces, some new friends, some old family, all united by a shared journey toward healing. My phone buzzed with messages from other victims around the world, sharing their stories of recovery and renewal. To all of us, I said, raising my glass, for choosing truth over fear. Later that night, I stood on my hotel balcony, watching the lights of Venice twinkle across the water. Presley joined me, 2 cups of coffee in hand. So what's next for you? She asked. Isabella and I are starting a support network for fraud victims, I said. And Dad's helping set up a legal fund for people who can't afford to fight back. Turning pain into purpose, she nodded. That's real strength. My phone buzzed one last time. A news alert. My mother's face stared back from the screen, but it didn't affect me anymore. She looked small now, diminished, just another criminal in prison clothes. I deleted the alert without reading it. You know what the best revenge is? I asked Presley. Living well, being happy, helping others. Your mother never understood that kind of power. No, I agreed. She never did. The night air was warm and sweet with possibility. Somewhere in the distance, church bells rang, their sound carrying across the water like a reminder that even the darkest stories can end in light. I didn't need my mother's approval anymore. I didn't need her love or her lessons or her twisted version of strength. I had something better. Truth, justice, and a family of choice who showed me what real love looks like. That was worth more than all the stolen fortunes in the world.
The first time I realized my mother cared more about appearances than actual people was when she made my sister cry at her own birthday party. Not the quiet kind of crying either, the full-on, mascara-running, shoulder-shaking kind that makes everyone stop and stare. And you know what my mom did? She smiled. That perfect plastic smile that never quite reached her eyes. I'm Amelia, and I grew up in a house where image was everything. Where the grass had to be exactly 1 inch tall, where family photos were choreographed like Broadway productions, and where my mother's word was absolute law. Lena, sweetie, you need to stop this right now, Mom said through clenched teeth, still maintaining that picture-perfect smile as my sister sobbed over her ruined birthday cake. People are watching. The cake wasn't even ruined, just slightly tilted from where Lena had bumped the table in her excitement. But to my mother, slightly imperfect, might as well have been destroyed. It's fine, Mom. I said, stepping forward. We can just… Amelia. Her voice cut through the air like a whip. Take your sister inside, now. I led Lena away from her own party, past the perfectly arranged refreshment table and manicured lawn, where our select guests pretended not to notice the drama unfolding. As soon as we were inside, Lena collapsed against me. I just wanted to see if the flowers were real, she hiccuped, referring to the sugar decorations on her cake. I know, kiddo. I hugged her tight. Mom's just being Mom. That night, after the guests had gone and Lena was in bed, I overheard Mom on the phone in her study. The door was cracked open just enough for me to see her pacing. Rocky, I need another extension. Yes, I know what I promised, but… Her voice dropped to a whisper. The party alone cost $3,000. I had to maintain appearances. No, don't you dare tell anyone about… She must have sensed my presence, because she whirled around, face white as chalk. Our eyes met through the gap in the door. I'll call you back, she said quickly, hanging up. I tried to step away, but she was faster. The door flew open, and she grabbed my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. What did you hear? Nothing, I lied. I was just going to ask about tomorrow's dinner. Her eyes narrowed, searching my face for any sign of deception. We're having the Harveys over. Their son Wade is in your class, isn't he? I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. Wade was actually one of the few people at school I could stand, mainly because he seemed to see through everyone's BS as clearly as I did. Wear the blue dress I bought you, she commanded, and do something with your hair. It looks common. Later that night, I called my best friend Toby, the only person who truly understood what it was like living under my mother's regime. You should have seen her today, I whispered into my phone, curled up in my window seat. She made Lena cry over a cake. Toby, a cake. Your mom's got issues, Ames, he replied. Like, serious control freak issues. Tell me about it. And I think I just overheard something I wasn't supposed to. Spill. She was talking to Rocky. You know, that sketchy friend of hers? Something about needing an extension and promising money. Wait, Toby interrupted. Isn't Rocky the one who runs that investment group your mom's always bragging about? Yeah, but this didn't sound like normal investment talk. She looked scared, Toby. I've never seen her scared before. A soft knock at my door made me jump. Amelia, it was Lena. Gotta go, I told Toby quickly. Text you later. Lena slipped into my room, her eyes still puffy from crying. Without a word, she climbed onto my bed and curled up next to me like she used to when we were little. Am I a bad person? She asked in a small voice. What? No. Why would you think that? Because I made Mom angry. Because I ruined everything. I felt something inside me crack. Listen to me, I said, turning to face her. You didn't ruin anything. Mom's the one who ruined your party, not you. But even as I comforted my sister, my mind kept returning to that phone conversation. My perfect, proper, controlling mother was hiding something. And for the first time in my life, I had leverage, real leverage, against her. I just had to figure out how to use it. The dress wasn't even that revealing. Long-sleeved, knee-length, with a subtle shimmer that caught the light when I moved. But the moment I stepped out of the dressing room at Nordstrom, Toby's face lit up, and I knew I'd found my homecoming dress. Your mom's going to hate it, he said, grinning. It's perfect. It's completely modest, I argued, spinning in front of the mirror. She can't possibly… It's not beige, boring, or from her approved list of stores. Trust me, she'll hate it. He was right, of course. But for once in my life, I didn't care. I'd saved up my own money from tutoring, and I was tired of looking like I'd stepped out of a 1950s catalog. When I got home, Mom was in the kitchen with Rocky, their heads bent over some paperwork that they quickly shuffled away when I walked in. Where have you been? Mom demanded. Shopping for homecoming. Look what I found. I held up the bag, trying to sound excited rather than defensive. Rocky's eyes darted between us, a strange smile playing on his lips. I should go, Grace. We can discuss the investment opportunities later. As soon as he left, Mom snatched the bag from my hands and pulled out the dress. Her face went through a series of expressions: shock, disgust, and finally that cold anger I knew too well. Absolutely not. Mom, it's perfectly appropriate. Even Mrs. Peterson would approve. And I said no. She held the dress up like it was contaminated. What will people think? This isn't what we wear. This isn't who we are. It's who I am. The words burst out before I could stop them. And maybe if you weren't so obsessed with what other people think. Enough. She threw the dress onto the counter. I've already bought you a suitable dress. It's hanging in your closet. I stormed upstairs to find a shapeless, pale pink monstrosity waiting for me. It looked like something from a budget wedding catalog, all cheap lace and weird ruffles. Don't you dare slam that. The door banged behind me, cutting off her words. My phone buzzed almost immediately. It was Wade. Hey, you okay? Saw you storm out of Nordstrom looking upset. I hesitated before replying. Just drama with my mom, the usual. Want to talk about it? I'm at the coffee shop by school. I glanced at my window. The trellis outside had supported many escape attempts over the years. Give me 15 minutes. Wade was waiting with 2 coffees when I arrived, slightly breathless from my climb and subsequent sprint. Your mom again? He asked, sliding 1 cup toward me. She's impossible. It's like she wants me to be her mini-me forever. I told him about the dress situation, surprised by how easy it was to talk to him. My dad's the same way, he said. Expects me to follow his footsteps into law, wear what he approves of, date who he thinks is appropriate. How do you deal with it? He shrugged. Small rebellions, like this. He rolled up his sleeve to reveal a small tattoo on his inner arm. A simple compass design. He'd kill you if he knew, probably, but it reminds me that I get to choose my own direction. When I got home, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I crept upstairs, hoping to avoid another confrontation. My bedroom door was open. The dress, my beautiful perfect dress, lay in shreds on my bed. The shimmer fabric was dulled with what looked like bleach, and the seams had been methodically ripped apart. Now you don't have a choice. Mom stood in the doorway, her voice eerily calm. You'll wear what I bought you. Something snapped inside me. All those years of control, of perfect smiles hiding ugly truths, of watching her break down anyone who dared to be different. It all crystallized into a single clear thought. You're right, Mom, I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. I don't have a choice about the dress. But you don't have a choice about what happens at homecoming either. She frowned. What are you talking about? I guess we'll both find out what people think when they learn where their investment money really went. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't dare, wouldn't I? You just destroyed something I bought with my own money. Something that mattered to me. Maybe it's time everyone saw who you really are. She stepped toward me, hand raised. But I stood my ground. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in her eyes. Amelia, I'll wear the pink dress, Mom, but remember, you taught me all about maintaining appearances, and sometimes appearances shatter. You're actually going to do it. Toby leaned forward across the library table, his voice barely above a whisper. Like, for real? I nodded, pulling up the photos I'd taken of Mom's paperwork on my phone. Look at these. Rocky's been helping her hide gambling debts for months. They've been using the investment group as a cover. Holy shit. He swiped through the images. These people trusted her with their money. Mrs. Peterson's entire retirement fund. Exactly. I took my phone back, my hands shaking slightly. The homecoming committee always lets parents give speeches before the dance. Mom's been chosen to talk about community values. The irony is actually painful. What's painful? Wade appeared behind us, making me jump. I quickly locked my phone screen. Nothing, Toby and I said, simultaneously, which obviously made it sound like something. Wade dropped into the chair next to me. Right, because you two always look this guilty when discussing nothing. He glanced between us. This about your mom. I hesitated, but something in his expression made me trust him. Can you keep a secret? After I explained everything, Wade was quiet for a long moment. You know this isn't just gonna hurt your mom, right? It's gonna blow up your whole family. She should have thought about that before. I'm not saying don't do it, he interrupted. I'm saying be sure you can live with the consequences. The bell rang, sending students scurrying to class. As we packed up, Wade touched my arm. Whatever you decide, I've got your back. Later that afternoon, I overheard Rocky and Mom arguing in the kitchen. You promised you'd have the money by now, Grace. Rocky's usually smooth voice was sharp with anger. The investors are asking questions. I just need more time, Mom pleaded. One more week. We don't have a week. Peterson's demanding an audit. If she finds out, she won't. Mom's voice hardened. I've worked too hard to maintain our position in this community. No one will believe. They'll believe bank statements, Rocky snapped. They'll believe empty accounts. And they'll definitely believe they're missing money. I shifted slightly, trying to hear better, but the floor creaked beneath my feet. Both adults whirled toward the doorway. Amelia, Mom's voice was dangerously sweet. How long have you been standing there? Rocky's face twisted into an ugly smile. Long enough, I'd say. He stepped toward me. Your mother and I were just discussing some sensitive business matters. I heard. I met his gaze steadily. Sounds like fraud to me. Amelia, Mom gasped. What? That's what it is, isn't it? You took people's money, lost it gambling, and now you're trying to cover it up. Rocky moved faster than I expected. His hand clamped around my arm, fingers digging in painfully. Listen carefully, you little... Get your hands off my daughter. Mom's sharp command surprised us both. Rocky released me, stepping back. Control your kid, Grace, he snarled. Or I'll make sure she understands exactly how serious this situation is. After he stormed out, Mom turned to me. The fear in her eyes had been replaced by something colder. You will not breathe a word of this to anyone. Do you understand? Or what? You'll destroy another dress? I'll pull you out of school, send you to your aunt in Idaho. Is that what you want? The threat hung in the air between us. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Toby wondering where I was. No, I said finally. That's not what I want. Relief flickered across her face. Good. Now go do your homework. I headed upstairs, but instead of going to my room, I slipped into Lena's. She was at her desk, headphones on, working on some art project. Hey, I said, tapping her shoulder. She jumped, pulling off her headphones. You scared me. Sorry. I sat on her bed, watching her arrange colored papers into intricate patterns. Listen, Lena, if something happened, something big, would you hate me? She turned to face me, frowning. What kind of something? Just something that might change things. A lot of things. She was quiet for a moment, her fingers still moving over the paper pieces. Is it about Mom? I nodded. Is it true? She asked softly. Yeah. She picked up a piece of red paper, folded it carefully, and added it to her design. Then I won't hate you. I left her room feeling both better and worse. My phone had 3 missed texts, 2 from Toby and 1 from Wade. You sure about this? Because there's no going back. But I meant what I said. I've got your back. I typed out my response. Homecoming's in 2 days. Time to show everyone who my mother really is. The note was waiting in my locker Thursday morning, folded into a tight square. No name, just 5 words. Keep your mouth shut, or else. That's straight-up movie villain material, Toby said when I showed him. Think it's from Rocky? Has to be. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. He's getting desperate. Maybe we should tell someone, the police. And say what? That my mom and her sketchy friend are threatening me because I found out they're stealing people's money. I shook my head. We need proof first. We have the photos. Not enough. We need something concrete. In English class, Wade passed me a note of his own. My dad's a lawyer. He could help. I turned to look at him, but he was deliberately focused on his textbook. After class, he caught up with me in the hallway. I'm serious, he said. He specializes in fraud cases. I can't involve your dad. This is personal enough to get another threat. He nodded toward my locker. Another note was sticking out through the vents. This one was worse. Ask your sister if she wants to keep her art scholarship. My hands started shaking. They're bringing Lena into this. Wade took the note, reading it twice. This isn't just about money anymore, Amelia. They're scared, which makes them dangerous. At home, Mom was hosting her weekly investment meeting in the living room. I could hear her laugh, that perfect practiced sound, as she served coffee to our neighbors. The returns have been exceptional, she was saying. Rocky's strategy is really paying off. I paused in the hallway, recording on my phone. Mrs. Peterson's voice cut through, but I still haven't received my quarterly statement. Oh, there must have been a mix-up with the mail, Mom said smoothly. I'll have Rocky send another copy right away. See that he does. My grandson's college fund is in there. I stopped recording when footsteps approached. Lena appeared around the corner, her face unusually serious. Why are you spying? She whispered. I fumbled for an excuse. I'm not stupid, Amelia. I know something's wrong. Mom's been acting weird. And Rocky came by this morning looking for you. He what? Said he needed to discuss your academic future, whatever that means. My stomach churned. Lena, listen to me. If Rocky ever comes by again, when Mom's not home, don't let him in, okay? You're scaring me. Just promise me. Okay, I promise. She hesitated. Is this about the money? I heard Mom crying in her room last night. She was on the phone with someone, begging for more time. Before I could respond, the living room door opened. Rocky stepped into the hallway, his eyes narrowing when he saw us. Girls, he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. Amelia, could we have a word? Actually, I was just leaving. I grabbed Lena's hand. We're late for her art class. I don't have art today, Lena started to say, but I squeezed her hand hard. Sure you do. Remember, the special workshop. Understanding flickered across her face. Right, the workshop. Sorry, Rocky. We were halfway to the door when Mom called out, Amelia, where are you going? Taking Lena to art, I shouted back, already pulling her outside. Once we were in my car, Lena turned to me. Okay, what's really going on? I started the engine, checking the rearview mirror to make sure Rocky hadn't followed us. I'm going to tell you something, but you have to promise not to freak out. By the time I finished explaining everything, we were parked outside Toby's house. Lena sat in silence for a long moment. So at homecoming, she trailed off. Yeah. And everyone will know. Yeah. She pulled out her phone, typing quickly. What are you doing? Texting my art teacher, she said. Telling her I need to drop out of the scholarship program. Lena, no. If I drop out now, they can't use it against you. She looked up at me, her expression eerily like Mom's. I'm choosing this, okay? I'm choosing you. My phone buzzed with a text from Wade. Rocky just left your house. Looked pissed. You okay? Another text came through immediately after, this one from an unknown number. Last warning, homecoming's tomorrow. Make the right choice. I showed both messages to Lena. She grabbed my hand. We're not backing down, are we? No, I said, squeezing her hand back. We're not. The morning before homecoming, I found Mom in my room, sitting on my bed with tears streaming down her face. The sight was so jarring, I almost backed out of the doorway. Mom? She looked up, not bothering to wipe her eyes. I used to sit here when you were little, watching you sleep. You were such a perfect baby, so trusting. What are you doing here? Rocky told me what you're planning. Her voice cracked. Please, Amelia, don't do this to our family. For a moment, I almost wavered. Then I remembered Lena's birthday party, the shredded dress, all the years of control and manipulation. You did this to our family, I said. I'm just telling the truth. The truth? She stood up, suddenly angry. The truth is I did everything for you girls. Everything. Do you think it was easy, maintaining our position in this community, making sure you had the best of everything? We never asked for the best. We just wanted, what? To be common. To throw away everything I built? She grabbed my shoulders. Rocky says he can fix this. One more investment, one big win. I jerked away from her. You're still gambling? After everything? It's not gambling when you know you'll win. Her eyes had a wild look I'd never seen before. Rocky has a system. This time it's guaranteed. Mom, listen to yourself. A knock at the front door made us both freeze. Through my window, I saw Wade's car in the driveway. That's my ride, I said. We're meeting the decorating committee early. Amelia, please. I grabbed my bag and rushed downstairs. Wade was waiting on the porch, looking concerned. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. More like the ghost of my mother's sanity. I climbed into his car, telling him about the conversation as we drove. She's desperate, he said. People do crazy things when they're desperate. I know, that's what scares me. At school, the gym was chaos. The decorating committee was trying to transform it into some kind of enchanted forest. But mostly it looked like a craft store had exploded. Toby met us at the door. Your mom's here. What? Why? Something about checking the sound system for her speech. He lowered his voice. Rocky's with her. I peered through the gym doors. Mom was standing by the stage, gesturing animatedly, while Rocky typed something on his phone. I don't like this, Wade said. They're up to something. Doesn't matter. I pulled out my own phone, checking the audio files and documents I'd gathered. In 8 hours, everyone will know the truth. Amelia. Lena's voice behind me made me jump. She was holding her phone, looking pale. You need to see this. It was an email from her art school. Due to concerns about your family's financial stability, we regret to inform you that your scholarship has been suspended pending review. They can't do that, I said. Can they? Rocky's friend is on the board, she said quietly. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Wade took my hand. We need to talk, privately. He led me to the empty choir room, closing the door behind us. My dad looked into Rocky last night. He's got a record. Fraud, embezzlement, the works. He's dangerous, Amelia. All the more reason to expose them. Listen to me. These people aren't just going to roll over. They could hurt you, hurt Lena. They're already hurting us. I pulled away from him. They're already threatening us and controlling us and… He caught my arms, pulling me back. I know, but we need to be smart about this. His face was inches from mine. Let me help you. Let my dad help you. We can do this the right way. For a moment, I almost gave in. It would be so easy to let someone else handle this, to not have to be the one to destroy everything. Then my phone buzzed. Another text from Rocky. Final offer, walk away now, or your sister loses more than just her scholarship. The right way takes too long, I said, showing Wade the message. They need to be stopped now. He read the text twice, then looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Okay, then we do this your way. But first, he kissed me. Not a gentle kiss, but one full of worry and determination, and something else I couldn't name. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead against mine. Whatever happens tonight, remember you're not alone in this. I know. I straightened up, squaring my shoulders. Now help me figure out how to hack into the gym's sound system. Through the window, I could see Mom and Rocky leaving the gym, looking satisfied. They had no idea what was coming. 8 hours to go. The pink dress felt like a straitjacket. Mom hovered while I got ready, adjusting every detail like I was her personal doll. Perfect, she said, stepping back. Now remember, smile when I'm speaking. The Peterson family will be watching. Is that a threat or just good advice? I muttered. Her hand froze on my shoulder. What was that? Nothing. I'll smile. The doorbell rang, Wade arriving to pick me up. Mom's eyes narrowed. I thought you were going with Toby. Change of plans. Downstairs, Wade stood awkwardly in our foyer, looking uncomfortable in his suit, while my mother circled him like a shark. Your father's coming to the ceremony, she asked. Yes, ma'am. He's very interested in hearing your speech. Something in his tone made her pause. But before she could respond, Rocky burst through the front door without knocking. Grace, we have a problem. He stopped short when he saw Wade. Private matter, Now. They disappeared into Mom's study. I moved closer to the door, but Wade caught my arm. "Don't," he whispered. "We already know what's happening. Mrs. Peterson called my dad this afternoon." "What?" "She's demanding an emergency audit. Tomorrow morning." My heart raced. "But the evidence will come out tonight," he finished. "Ready?" I glanced at the closed study door, where raised voices were becoming audible. More than ready. The gym had been transformed. Fake trees, draped with twinkling lights, created winding paths between clusters of tables. The stage was set up for the ceremony, where parents would give their speeches before the dance began. Toby met us at our assigned table, looking nervous. "Everything's set with the sound system. You sure about this?" I pulled out my phone, checking the audio files one last time. "Absolutely." "Amelia." Lena appeared beside me, still in her helper's apron from decorating. "Rocky's here. He's talking to the principal." Through the crowd, I could see them by the stage. Rocky was gesturing emphatically, while the principal nodded. "He's trying to stop your mom's speech," Lena said. "Saying she's sick or something." "He knows," Wade said. "He must have figured out what we're planning." "It doesn't matter," I said, even as my hands shook. "I don't need Mom's speech. I just need—" "Amelia Lynch?" A voice behind me made me jump. The principal's assistant stood there with a clipboard. "You've been added to the speaking program. Your mother requested it specifically." My blood ran cold. "What?" "She says you have something important to share with the community." I looked at Wade, then Toby, then Lena. They all wore the same expression of dawning horror. "It's a trap," Wade said. "If you go up there, they'll try to discredit me first," I finished. "Make anything I say sound like teenage rebellion. So don't do it," Lena pleaded. "We'll find another way." The lights dimmed, signaling the start of the ceremony. I could see Mom and Rocky by the entrance, watching me. Mom's smile was back, that perfect practice smile that hid everything ugly underneath. "No," I said, "no more hiding, no more perfect facades." I turned to Toby. "Is the sound system still set?" He nodded. "But then here's what we're going to do." I quickly outlined my new plan. Wade looked worried. Toby looked scared. But Lena looked proud. "Mom and Rocky think they're trapping me," I said. "But they forgot something important." "What's that?" Wade asked. "I've spent my whole life watching them manipulate people. I learned from the best." The principal took the stage, tapping the microphone. "Welcome everyone to this year's homecoming celebration." Mom caught my eye across the room and smiled wider, probably thinking she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. I felt Wade's hand slip into mine. "Last chance to back out." "Not a chance." I squeezed his hand. "Besides, your dad's here, right? With those police officers by the door." He grinned. "Ready to act the moment you give them proof." The principal was introducing the first speaker. Soon it would be my turn. Mom and Rocky thought they were forcing my hand, making me choose between public humiliation or silent compliance. But I had recordings, bank statements, witness statements from people they'd threatened. And most importantly, I had the truth. "Ready?" Toby whispered, his hand on the sound system controls. I watched my mother take her seat in the front row, still wearing that perfect smile. "Ready." And now, Amelia Lynch would like to say a few words about community values. The spotlight felt hot as I walked to the microphone. Mom's smile had turned predatory. She thought she was watching me walk into her trap. "Good evening," I started, my voice surprisingly steady. "We're here tonight to talk about values, about trust, about the masks we wear, and the lies we tell to maintain our perfect images." Rocky shifted in his seat. Mom's smile flickered. "My mother taught me everything I know about appearances, about hiding ugly truths behind beautiful lies." I pulled out my phone. "Let me share some of those lessons with you." Before Rocky could move, Toby hit the sound system. My mother's voice filled the gym. "Rocky, I need another extension. The investors can't know. We'll lose everything." Mom stood up. "Amelia, stop this right now." "Why, isn't this what you wanted?" For me to share with everyone? I clicked to the next recording. Rocky's voice now. Control your kid, Grace, or I'll make sure she understands exactly how serious this situation is. The crowd started murmuring. Mrs. Peterson rose from her seat, face pale. Here's the truth, I continued, my voice rising over the growing noise. My mother and Rocky have been running a Ponzi scheme through their investment group. They've stolen millions, your retirement funds, your children's college savings, all of it, to cover my mother's gambling debts. She's lying, Rocky shouted, starting toward the stage. 2 police officers stepped forward, blocking his path. Am I? I held up my phone. I have bank statements, transfer records, everything. Amelia, please, Mom's voice cracked. You're destroying our family. No, Mom, you did that. Every time you chose appearances over reality. Every time you hurt someone to maintain your perfect image. I turned to the crowd. Mrs. Peterson, check your accounts, now. She was already on her phone, hands shaking, the color drained from her face. It's empty, she whispered. Everything's gone. The gym erupted in chaos. People grabbed their phones, checking accounts, shouting questions. Rocky tried to run, but was quickly detained by the officers. Grace Lynch, Wade's father, stepped forward, flanked by more police. You're under arrest for fraud and embezzlement. Mom's perfect mask finally cracked. She looked around wildly. Then her eyes locked on me. I did it for you. Everything I did was to give you a better life. No, I said into the microphone, my voice echoing over the chaos. You did it for yourself, for your image, for your addiction. As the officers led her away, she started crying. Real tears this time, not the perfect ones she'd practiced in mirrors. You've ruined everything, she sobbed. Actually, Wade's father stepped up to the microphone beside me. Thanks to your daughter's evidence, we've already frozen the offshore accounts where most of the money was hidden. With proper legal action, most of it can be recovered. The relief in the room was palpable. Mrs. Peterson actually hugged me, tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. My grandson's future. I found Lena in the crowd, her face a mix of emotions I couldn't read. When our eyes met, she gave me a small nod. Wade appeared at my side as the police led Mom and Rocky away. You okay? I don't know. My hands were shaking now that it was over. I just sent my mother to jail. You exposed the truth, he corrected. There's a difference. The principal was trying to restore order, announcing that the dance would be postponed. People were still talking, calling family members, sharing the news. Amelia, Toby called from the sound booth. You might want to see this. He held up his phone. Local news alerts were already popping up. Local investment scandal exposed at high school dance, and mother-daughter confrontation reveals $1 million fraud. Well, Wade said, taking my hand. Guess you can't hide from this one. Good. I squeezed his hand. I'm done hiding. Lena joined us, still wearing her helper's apron. What happens now? Now, I looked around the gym, at the fake trees and twinkling lights that were supposed to create a perfect fantasy world. Now we deal with reality. Together, she asked, her voice small. I pulled her into a hug. Together. The police were still taking statements. Cameras were flashing. And tomorrow would bring a whole new storm of consequences. But for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. No more perfect facades, no more masks, just the messy, complicated truth. And somehow, that was better than perfect. The morning sun streamed through the courthouse windows as I straightened Lena's collar. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. She squared her shoulders. I want to speak at the sentencing. Wade's father approached us, legal papers in hand. They're ready. Remember, your mother's already pleaded guilty to reduce her sentence. Inside the courtroom, Mom sat at the defendant's table in her prison jumpsuit. No makeup, no perfect hair, no facade. When she saw us, her eyes filled with tears. Rocky was being sentenced separately. He'd tried to flee the country, but was caught at the Canadian border. "All rise," the bailiff called. The judge reviewed the charges, the plea agreement, then turned to the gallery. "I understand some victims wish to speak." Mrs. Peterson went first, describing how she'd trusted Mom with her grandson's future. Others followed, neighbors, friends, all people who'd believed in the perfect image Mom had created. Then Lena stood up. "My mother taught me that appearance is everything," she said, her voice clear and strong. "That we should hide our true selves to make others comfortable. But my sister taught me something different." She turned to look at me. "She taught me that real strength comes from telling the truth, even when it hurts." Mom started crying silently. "I don't hate you, Mom," Lena continued. "But I don't want to be perfect anymore. I want to be real." When she sat down, the judge nodded at me. "Would you like to speak, Miss Lynch?" I stood, facing my mother directly. "All my life, you controlled everything. What I wore, who I talked to, how I acted. You said it was because you loved me, but love doesn't destroy dresses, or threaten scholarships, or steal from innocent people." Mom tried to speak, but her lawyer stopped her. "I'm not speaking today to punish you," I said. "I'm speaking because for the first time I can. Because Lena deserves to live without fear of disappointing you. Because all these people deserved better than your lies." The judge considered everything, then delivered the sentence. 8 years, with possibility of parole after 5, plus restitution to all victims. As the bailiff led Mom away, she turned to us one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras and questions. Wade stepped in front of us, blocking their view. My father's handling press statements. "Let's get out of here." We escaped to the small cafe where Wade and I had first really talked. Toby was waiting with hot chocolates and news. "The art school reinstated your scholarship," he told Lena. "They said your moral courage impressed them." She smiled. A real smile, not Mom's practiced one. I submitted a new piece, called it Perfect Lies. The house sold quickly. Wade's father joined us, sitting down heavily. "Between that and the recovered funds, most victims will get their money back." "Where will we live?" Lena asked quietly. "With Aunt Sarah," I said. "She's moving back to help us finish school here." "The cool aunt who rides motorcycles?" Toby grinned. "The one your mom always called a bad influence?" "That's the one." Wade took my hand under the table. "You okay?" I looked around at my strange little family. My brave sister, my loyal best friend, my supportive boyfriend, his father, who'd helped us navigate the legal chaos. None of it was perfect. All of it was real. "You know what?" I squeezed his hand. "I actually am." My phone buzzed with a text from Mom's prison account. "I understand now what I did to you. To everyone. I hope someday you can forgive me." Lena read it over my shoulder. "Will you?" "Someday," I said. "When she proves she's really changed. When she learns to be real instead of perfect." "Like us?" she asked. "Like us." Outside, fall leaves swirled past the window. The same leaves that had been falling the night I discovered Mom's secret. But everything else had changed. "Hey," Toby said suddenly. "You never got to actually go to homecoming." Wade's eyes lit up. He stood, offering me his hand with exaggerated formality. "May I have this dance? There's no music." I laughed. He pulled out his phone, started playing a slow song. Other cafe patrons smiled as he pulled me to my feet. "Who needs a fancy dress?" he said softly. "You're perfect just like this." "Not perfect," I corrected him. "Real." As we swayed between the tables, Lena took pictures with her art school camera, capturing the moment in all its imperfect glory. No posed smiles, no careful angles, just genuine joy. And that was better than perfect could ever be.
The letter trembled in my hands as I stared at the words that would change everything. "You've always held me back." Lonnie's handwriting, usually so precise and controlled, was messy and rushed, like he couldn't wait to get the words out, to get away from me. "My name is Catherine. and after 15 years of marriage, my husband left me for another woman via a letter on our kitchen counter. The coward couldn't even say it to my face. I sat at our marble island, the one we'd picked out together during the renovation 3 years ago, and read the letter again. The house felt too quiet, too empty. The ticking of the antique clock Lonnie's mother had given us for our 10th anniversary seemed to mock me with each second. My phone buzzed. Lexi's name flashed across the screen. My cousin, my best friend since childhood. "Have you heard from Lonnie?" Her voice was careful, measured. "Oh, I've heard from him all right." I smoothed the letter against the counter. He left me a goodbye note like I'm some kind of roommate he's trying to dodge rent from. "What? Catherine, I'm coming over." 20 minutes later, Lexi burst through my front door, still in her yoga clothes, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun. She took one look at me and wrapped me in a hug that smelled like lavender and sweat. "Tell me everything," she said, pulling back to study my face. I handed her the letter. Her eyes widened as she read, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the paper. "That bastard," she whispered. "And Vanessa Clark, the socialite." I jerked my head up. "How did you know about Vanessa?" Lexi's face flushed. I saw them together at LeBlanc last week. I was going to tell you, but I wanted to be sure first." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. "You knew? For a whole week?" "Catherine, Get out." My voice was eerily calm. "Please, let me explain." "Get out!" I screamed, surprising us both. After Lexi left, I wandered through the house like a ghost, touching things that suddenly felt foreign. Photos of Lonnie and me smiled back at me from every wall, lies frozen in time. I grabbed the nearest frame and hurled it across the room. The glass shattered satisfyingly against the wall. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Camden, my old college friend who'd recently moved back to town. "Catherine," Lexi called me. "Are you okay?" I laughed bitterly. "Define okay." "I'm bringing wine and pizza, no arguments." An hour later, Camden and I sat on my kitchen floor, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and wine bottles. I told him everything, including Lexi's betrayal. "You know what the worst part is?" I took another sip of wine. "He's probably at Vanessa's right now, in her mansion, laughing about how he finally broke free from his ball and chain. Then he's an idiot," Camden said firmly. "And he'll realize it too late." I was about to respond when something caught my eye. A corner of yellowed paper peeking out from behind the fallen photo I'd thrown earlier. I crawled over and pulled it free. "What's that?" Camden asked. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter. "It's from my Aunt Victoria. She died last year." I scanned the contents, my heart beginning to race. "Camden, this doesn't make sense. She mentions an inheritance, something valuable she left for me, but I never received anything after her death." "What exactly does it say?" I read aloud. "My dearest Catherine, when the time comes, remember that true wealth lies in the safe behind the portrait. The combination is the date we first met, the day you changed my life. With love, Victoria." Camden leaned forward. "The portrait? What portrait?" I stood up, suddenly energized despite the wine. "Her self-portrait, the one she willed to me that's been in storage since her death." My mind was racing. "Camden, help me make some calls. I need to find that painting." As I dialed the storage facility's number, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time since finding Lonnie's letter, I felt something other than despair, something that felt dangerously close to hope. Or maybe it was revenge. The storage facility was a maze of identical metal doors, our footsteps echoing off concrete floors. The manager, a balding man named Pete, led us to Unit 247. "Here it is, ma'am, just like you left it last year." I fumbled with the key, my hands trembling slightly. Camden stood beside me, coffee in hand. We'd both needed it after last night's wine session. The door creaked open, revealing stacks of boxes and furniture draped in white sheets. The portrait was easy to spot, propped against the back wall. Aunt Victoria's piercing eyes seemed to follow me as I approached. That's quite something, Camden whispered, helping me lift the heavy frame. We carefully carried it to my SUV. Back at home, we positioned it in the living room, where sunlight streamed through the windows. I studied the ornate frame, running my fingers along its edges. There has to be a mechanism or... My voice trailed off as I felt a slight click. The frame swung forward, revealing a small wall safe behind it. Damn, Camden breathed. Your aunt wasn't kidding. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through old photos until I found what I needed. A picture from my 16th birthday, the day I first met Victoria. July 18th, 1998, I muttered, turning the dial. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside was a leather portfolio and an envelope addressed to me. My hand shook as I opened the letter. My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've solved my little puzzle. What you hold in your hands is the truth about our family's legacy, specifically your inheritance. I've kept these documents hidden because I knew certain people would try to prevent you from receiving what's rightfully yours. The portfolio contains proof of your ownership of significant shares in Victoria's Secret Gardens, the company your grandfather and I built together. These shares were meant for you on your 21st birthday, but your father's gambling debts complicated things. I've spent years legally protecting this inheritance for you. Contact Jarrett Evans. He's been my lawyer for 20 years and knows everything. Trust him. Love always, Victoria. I sat heavily on the couch, staring at the documents. Victoria's Secret Gardens was one of the largest luxury spa chains in the country. The shares in my hands were worth millions. My phone rang, making me jump. It was Lexi. Catherine, please, we need to talk. I ended the call without answering and immediately dialed the number for Jarrett Evans that was paperclipped to the documents. Jarrett Evans speaking. Mr. Evans, this is Catherine Benson. I just found some documents from my Aunt Victoria. There was a pause. I've been waiting for this call for over a year, Catherine. Can you come to my office today? 2 hours later, Camden and I sat in a sleek downtown office while Jarrett, a distinguished man in his 40s, examined the documents. Everything appears to be in order, he said, looking up. Victoria was very thorough. These shares represent a 30% ownership in Victoria's Secret Gardens. She arranged everything so they couldn't be touched by your father's creditors or any future claims. Future claims? I asked. Such as a divorce settlement, he said pointedly. My heart skipped a beat. How did she know? Victoria was an excellent judge of character. She never trusted Lonnie. He leaned forward. Catherine, there's something else you should know. Vanessa Clark has been trying to acquire controlling interest in the company for months. These shares would prevent that from happening. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. You mean the same Vanessa Clark who's sleeping with my husband? The very same. Jarrett's expression matched mine. Would you like to know how we can proceed? Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Lexi. Had lunch with Vanessa today. She's not the monster you think she is. Give her a chance? I showed the message to Camden, who whistled low. Looks like your cousin's picked her side. I turned to Jarrett, my decision made. Tell me everything I need to know. And then we're going to make some changes. As Jarrett outlined our strategy, I felt a surge of energy I hadn't experienced since finding Lonnie's letter. My aunt hadn't just left me money, she'd left me power, and I intended to use it. One more thing, Jarrett said, pulling out another envelope. Victoria left this for you too. She said to give it to you once you found everything else. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single photo. Victoria, at my age, standing proud in front of her first spa location. On the back, she'd written, "Sometimes the best revenge is living well. Make them regret underestimating you." I tucked the photo into my purse, my aunt's words burning into my mind. Oh, they would regret it. They would regret it all. The charity gala was in full swing when I walked in, wearing a black dress that cost more than my old monthly budget. Heads turned. They always did when someone entered the crystal ballroom. But this time, the whispers that followed were different. Is that Catherine? Lonnie's ex? I heard she... I smiled, remembering Jarrett's words from our strategy meeting. Let them talk. Every whisper works in our favor. Camden appeared at my elbow, handsome in his tuxedo. Ready to make some waves? Born ready. I accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter. Is she here? Northwest corner. With Lexi. I turned casually, spotting them immediately. Vanessa held court near the windows, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than most cars. Lexi stood beside her, laughing at something she'd said. The sight made my stomach turn. Catherine, a familiar voice called out. Margaret, the gala's organizer and an old family friend, hurried over. I'm so glad you came. And is it true about you taking over your aunt's position on the board? I nodded, noting how the nearby conversation suddenly quieted. Yes, I'm attending my first board meeting next week. How wonderful! Margaret's voice carried perfectly. Victoria would be so proud. She always said you were the only one who truly understood her vision for the company. From the corner of my eye, I saw Vanessa's head snap in our direction. Bingo. My phone buzzed. A text from Jarrett. Documents filed. Everything set for Monday. Excuse me, a smooth voice interrupted. Vanessa stood before us, Lexi hovering anxiously behind her. Catherine, darling, we simply must catch up. Must we? I took a deliberate sip of champagne. I insist. Her perfectly manicured hand gripped my arm, steering me toward a quiet corner. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I raised an eyebrow. Is that what we're calling sleeping with my husband? Ex-husband, she corrected with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And really, I did you a favor. Lonnie was never meant for small-town life. How thoughtful of you. I matched her smile. Speaking of favors, how's your acquisition going? I heard there were some complications. The flash of anger in her eyes was worth every second of the past month's pain. Catherine, Lexi stepped forward, please don't make this difficult. Vanessa's offering to buy your shares at well above market value. I turned to my cousin, feeling a fresh wave of betrayal. And how long have you been her errand girl, Lexi? Was it before or after she started sleeping with my husband? Lexi flinched. That's not fair. I'm trying to help everyone get what they want. What I want? I laughed softly. What I want is for my cousin to remember who she is. What I want is for my husband's mistress to realize she's not as clever as she thinks she is. Listen here, you little... Vanessa started, but I cut her off. No, you listen. Those shares aren't for sale. Not now, not ever. And on Monday, when the board announces the new majority shareholder, you'll understand exactly why my aunt chose me to carry on her legacy. I turned to leave, but Vanessa grabbed my arm again. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I pulled free. I do. I'm dealing with a woman who's leveraged herself to the hilt trying to buy up company shares, not realizing Victoria had already secured the controlling interest. I'm dealing with someone who thought seducing my husband would somehow give her an advantage in business negotiations. How's that working out for you, by the way? The color drained from her face. Behind her, Lexi's eyes widened. Catherine, Lexi reached for me. I didn't know. Save it. I stepped back. You chose your side. Now live with it. I walked away, feeling their stares burning into my back. Camden met me halfway across the room. That looked intense, he said, guiding me toward the exit. It was necessary. I checked my phone as another text came through, this time from my bank. The transfer was complete. Victoria's inheritance was officially mine. Outside, the night air was cool against my skin. A familiar car pulled up, Lonnie's Mercedes. He stepped out, straightening his tie. Catherine? He stopped short, taking in my appearance. You look different. Amazing what self-respect does for a woman's appearance. I smiled sweetly. Enjoy the party. I hear Vanessa could use a drink. As Camden and I walked to our car, I heard the ballroom doors open behind us. Vanessa's voice carried across the parking lot. Lonnie, we need to talk. Now. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. The sound of their arguing told me everything I needed to know. Victoria was right. Sometimes the best revenge is simply watching karma do its work. And karma was just getting started. The boardroom at Victoria's Secret Gardens headquarters felt like an arena. 14 pairs of eyes watched me take my seat at the massive mahogany table. Jarrett sat to my right, a reassuring presence in an expensive suit. "Before we begin," Vanessa announced from the other end of the table, "I'd like to address the elephant in the room." She smiled tightly. "Catherine's unexpected inheritance. Is there something specific you'd like to discuss?" I kept my voice level, remembering Jarrett's coaching. "Just wondering about the timing. It seems convenient that these shares suddenly appeared right when I was close to acquiring majority control." An older board member, Robert, cleared his throat. "The shares were never hidden, Ms. Clark. Victoria was quite clear about her succession plans. Which you'd know," I added, "if you'd done proper due diligence before trying to hostile take over my family's company." The door burst open. Lonnie stormed in, his face red. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "Mr. Benson," Jarrett stood smoothly, "this is a private board meeting. You'll need to leave." "Like hell I will. Catherine, what game are you playing?" I remained seated, maintaining eye contact with Vanessa. "Security, please escort my ex-husband from the premises." 2 guards appeared almost immediately. Lonnie struggled as they led him out, his voice echoing down the hallway. "You can't do this to me." "Actually," I finally turned to face the door, "I can. And I just did." Vanessa's perfectly manicured nails drummed against the table. "That was unnecessary. Like sleeping with my husband while trying to steal my aunt's company." A few board members shifted uncomfortably. Others tried to hide their smirks. "Let's focus on business," Robert suggested, clearly enjoying the drama. "Catherine, you called this meeting. The floor is yours." I opened my laptop, connecting it to the projector. "Thank you. I've reviewed our operations, and I've identified several areas where we're falling short of Victoria's original vision." For the next hour, I laid out my plans. New wellness programs, community outreach initiatives, employee profit sharing. With each slide, I watched Vanessa's expression grow darker. "This is absurd," she finally interrupted. "These programs will cut into our profit margins." Actually, Jarrett distributed some documents. Our projections show increased customer loyalty and employee retention will more than offset the initial investment. My phone buzzed. A text from Camden. "TV crews outside. Story about Vanessa's failed takeover hitting news at 6. I smiled. "Which brings me to our final point, public relations." Vanessa's face went pale. She glanced at her own phone, likely seeing the same news alerts I'd planned with Jarrett. "This meeting is over." She stood abruptly. "My lawyers will—" "Will what?" I asked softly. "Contest the legitimate inheritance of shares. Question Victoria's mental state when she made her will. Go ahead. The publicity will be fascinating." The boardroom door opened again. This time, Lexi walked in, holding a manila envelope. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa snapped. Lexi avoided her gaze, walking straight to me. "I found these in your old house. Thought you should have them." I opened the envelope. Inside were documents showing Vanessa's attempts to pressure Victoria into selling before her death, including some very aggressive emails. "Thank you, Lexi." "I meant it." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Catherine. I didn't know about any of it." "Lexi!" Vanessa's voice cracked like a whip. "Remember what we discussed?" My cousin straightened her spine. "Yes, I do. I remember everything we discussed, including your plans to force Catherine out once you had control." The boardroom erupted in murmurs. Vanessa grabbed her bag, practically running for the door. "This isn't over." "Actually," I called after her, "it is. Security will show you out, permanently." After she left, Robert stood up, applauding. Others joined in. "Victoria would be proud," he said. "Welcome home, Catherine." Later, in my new office, Victoria's old office, Lexi and I sat across from each other, the weight of months of betrayal between us. I was stupid, she whispered. So stupid. Yes, you were. I poured us both some tea, but you came through in the end. Can you ever forgive me? I thought about Victoria's words. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. It'll take time, I said honestly, but we're family. Real family, not whatever game Vanessa was playing. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Socialite's failed takeover attempt leads to major stock losses. I showed it to Lexi, who let out a low whistle. What happens now? Now? I looked around the office, at Victoria's portrait on the wall, at the city skyline beyond the windows. Now we build something better, together. The tea was perfect, Victoria's special blend. Everything was exactly as it should be. The renovation of Victoria's Secret Gardens flagship location was in full swing when Camden found me in the construction zone, hard hat in place, reviewing blueprints with the contractors. You need to see this, he said, holding up his tablet. The headline read, Power Couples Fall from Grace. Vanessa Clark files for bankruptcy. Lonnie Benson named in financial investigation. Karma works faster than I expected, I mused, directing a worker where to place a support beam. That's not all. Camden scrolled down. Apparently, Vanessa's been running a Ponzi scheme through her investment firm. Your aunt's shares weren't the only things she was trying to acquire illegally. A familiar voice interrupted us. Catherine, do you have a minute? Lexi stood in the doorway, clutching a stack of folders. Since her confession in the boardroom 2 weeks ago, she'd been working overtime to prove her loyalty, helping me implement Victoria's vision for the company. The women's shelter called, she said. They want to know if we're still on for the partnership program. Absolutely. I handed the blueprints to the contractor. Set up a meeting for tomorrow and get Maria from HR involved. We'll need to start training their residents for our apprenticeship program. My phone rang. Jarrett's name flashed on the screen. Catherine, turn on the news, now. Camden already had his tablet ready. We huddled around it as the reporter spoke. Sources say Vanessa Clark attempted to flee the country this morning, but was detained at the airport. Her partner, Lonnie Benson, remains at large. Holy shit, Lexi whispered. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Catherine, Lonnie's voice was desperate. Please, I need your help. Interesting choice of words, I replied coldly. Considering you said I was nothing but a burden. Baby, I was wrong, so wrong. Vanessa, she manipulated me. She used me to get to you, to the company. I see that now. Where are you, Lonnie? I can't say, but if you could just loan me some money, help me get out of town. You mean help you evade arrest? I caught Camden's eye and he nodded, already dialing someone. Keep him talking, he mouthed. Catherine, please, for old time's sake, remember how good we were together. I remember everything, Lonnie, including how you left me with nothing but a note. I'll make it up to you, I promise, just... His voice cut off abruptly. In the background, I heard, FBI, hands where we can see them. I ended the call, hands shaking slightly. Camden put his arm around me. You okay? Better than okay. I straightened my hard hat. Let's get back to work. This place isn't going to renovate itself. The rest of the day flew by in a blur of decisions and meetings. By evening, I stood in what would become the main therapy room, watching the sunset through the floor-to-ceiling windows. It's really coming together, Camden said, joining me. Victoria would have loved it. I touched the wall, feeling the smooth texture of the new paint. She always said our spas should be more than just luxury retreats. They should be sanctuaries. Speaking of sanctuaries, he hesitated. The realtor called. Your old house sold. I nodded. After everything that happened, I couldn't stand living there anymore. The proceeds would go to the new charitable foundation I was establishing, helping women rebuild their lives after similar betrayals. Ms. Catherine, Maria from HR appeared. The first group of apprentices is here for orientation. In the conference room, 20 women sat nervously, many bearing the invisible scars of broken relationships and shattered dreams. I recognized that look. I'd seen it in my own mirror not so long ago. "Welcome to Victoria's Secret Gardens," I began. "I know what it's like to feel lost, betrayed, worthless, but I also know what it's like to rise above it. This program isn't just about job training. It's about reclaiming your power." One woman raised her hand. "We heard about what happened with your husband and that socialite. How did you stay so strong?" I thought about Victoria's hidden inheritance, about Lexi's redemption, about Camden's unwavering support. By remembering that our worst moments don't define us, our response to them does. Later, as I packed up my office for the day, Lexi brought in the evening papers. The headlines screamed about Lonnie's arrest and Vanessa's impending trial. "Quite a day," she said, setting them on my desk. "Quite a month." I looked at Victoria's portrait. "But you know what? I wouldn't change any of it." "Really? Not even the painful parts?" "Especially not those." I smiled, gathering my things. Sometimes you need to be broken down completely to build something better in your place. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to make Victoria's legacy proud. But for now, I was exactly where I needed to be. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived for Vanessa's trial. 6 months had passed since her arrest, and the media circus hadn't died down one bit. "Ms. Catherine, any comment on today's proceedings? How do you feel about testifying against your ex-husband? Is it true Vanessa Clark threatened you?" I pushed through the crowd, Camden at my side acting as a buffer. Inside, Jarrett waited by the security checkpoint. "Ready?" he asked, straightening his tie. "Born ready." I smoothed my navy blazer, Victoria's favorite, found in the back of her closet. "Is he here?" "Lonnie's being brought in from county. Vanessa's already inside with her lawyer." The courtroom was packed. I spotted Lexi in the gallery, who gave me a small wave. She'd be testifying later about Vanessa's manipulation and schemes. As I took my seat at the prosecution's table, the side door opened. Vanessa entered in an orange jumpsuit, a far cry from her designer dresses. Our eyes met briefly. The hatred in her gaze could have melted steel. "All rise!" The proceedings began with opening statements. I half listened as the prosecutor detailed Vanessa's financial crimes, my attention caught by movement at the door. Lonnie was being led in, also in custody orange. He'd lost weight, his once perfect hair now unkempt. The prosecution calls Catherine to the stand. Walking to the witness box, I felt surprisingly calm. Months of preparation with Jarrett had readied me for this moment. "Please state your name for the record." "Catherine Marie Benson. And how do you know the defendant?" "She had an affair with my husband while attempting to illegally acquire my family's company." Vanessa's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. "Tell us about the events leading up to March 15th. I detailed everything. Finding Lonnie's letter, discovering Victoria's inheritance, uncovering Vanessa's scheme. With each word, I watched Vanessa's composed facade crack further. "Did Miss Clark ever threaten you directly?" "Yes. At the charity gala, she—" "Objection!" Vanessa stood up suddenly. "She's lying. This is all because she couldn't keep her husband satisfied." "Miss Clark, control yourself." The judge banged his gavel. "Tell them, Lonnie." Vanessa turned to him. "Tell them how Catherine trapped you in that boring life." Lonnie wouldn't meet her eyes. Or mine. "Remove Ms. Clark until she can compose herself," the judge ordered. As guards led Vanessa out, she screamed, "You think you've won? You're nothing. Nothing." During the recess, I found Camden by the water fountain. "That was intense," he said, handing me a coffee. "Did you see Lonnie's face when Vanessa lost it?" I couldn't help smiling. Karma really is a spectacular thing. "Catherine," Lexi approached cautiously, "they're ready for my testimony." "You'll do fine." I squeezed her hand. "Just tell the truth." Back in the courtroom, a calmer Vanessa had returned. Lexi took the stand, visibly nervous. "Ms. Benson, please describe your relationship with the defendant." She befriended me to get information about Catherine and Victoria's secret gardens. She told me she'd make me a partner in her investment firm if I helped her. And did you believe her? At first, but then I found documents proving she was lying to everyone. She never intended to honor any of her promises. Vanessa's lawyer tried to discredit Lexi's testimony, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, emails, recorded conversations, it all painted a clear picture of calculated deception. The final blow came when Lonnie took the stand. "Mr. Benson, did Ms. Clark instruct you to marry Catherine to gain access to her family's business?" Lonnie's voice was barely audible. "No, that was real, at least at first." "When did things change?" He glanced at me, then quickly away. "Vanessa approached me 3 years ago, said she knew about my gambling debts, promised to help if I helped her get close to Catherine's family." "You son of a bitch," Vanessa hissed. The judge called for order as Vanessa's lawyer desperately tried to damage control. But the truth was out, and nothing could put it back in its box. Hours later, I stood on the courthouse steps again, this time facing the reporters by choice. "Ms. Catherine, what's next for Victoria's Secret Gardens?" "We're expanding our community outreach programs," I announced, including a new foundation helping women rebuild their lives after domestic abuse and financial fraud. Sometimes, the best way forward is to help others find their way too. As the cameras flashed, I caught sight of Vanessa being led to a prison transport van. Our eyes met one final time. I smiled and waved, channeling every ounce of Victoria's elegant grace. Behind me, Camden chuckled. "You enjoyed that, didn't you?" "Maybe a little." I turned away from the van. "Come on, we have a foundation to build." The future stretched out before me, bright and full of possibility. Victoria would have been proud. 1 year after the trial, I stood on stage at the grand reopening of Victoria's Secret Gardens' flagship location. The renovation had transformed it into something beyond even my dreams. A perfect blend of luxury and healing. Today marks not just a reopening, I addressed the crowd, but a rebirth. Every woman who walks through these doors will find more than just spa treatments. They'll find hope. The audience applauded as I cut the ribbon. Camera flashes lit up the morning air. In the front row, Camden beamed proudly, while Lexi dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "And now," I continued, "I'm honored to introduce our first graduating class of the Victoria's New Beginnings program." 20 women walked onto the stage, each wearing the spa's signature uniform. These were the same nervous faces from that first orientation, now transformed by confidence and purpose. Sarah, one of the graduates, stepped up to the microphone. "A year ago, I was living in my car after leaving an abusive relationship. Today, I'm a licensed massage therapist and the new assistant manager of the wellness department." More applause, more tears, more hope. After the ceremony, during the reception, Jarrett pulled me aside. "Have you seen this?" He showed me his phone. The headline read, "Lonnie Benson released early for good behavior." I heard. I sipped my champagne. "He sent me a letter last week." And nothing. That chapter's closed. Speaking of chapters, Camden joined us, grinning. "Tell them your news." I blushed. The publisher accepted my book proposal. Rising from the Ashes, A Guide to Rebuilding Your Life, will be out next spring. Victoria would be over the moon, Lexi said, appearing with a plate of hors d'oeuvres. "Remember how she always said you should write?" She said a lot of things that turned out to be right. I touched the locket around my neck, Victoria's, found in the safe behind her portrait. A commotion at the entrance caught our attention. Robert, the board member who'd supported me from the start, rushed in. "Catherine, turn on the news." Someone grabbed the remote, and the reception's massive screens flickered to life. A reporter stood outside a federal courthouse. "Breaking news. Vanessa Clark's appeal has been denied. Additionally, new evidence suggests her financial crimes extend further than initially thought, potentially adding years to her sentence." "Well," Camden raised his glass, "here's to karma." The party continued, but I slipped away to Victoria's old office, now mine. The city sparkled beyond the windows, just as it had that first night I'd taken possession of my inheritance. A knock at the door. "Catherine?" I turned to find Sarah, still in her graduation robe. "Everything okay?" "More than okay." She twisted her hands nervously. "I wanted to thank you, not just for the program, but for showing us it's possible to start over. You did all the hard work. Maybe, but you showed us the way." She hesitated. "There's someone here to see you, in the lobby." Curious, I took the elevator down. The lobby was nearly empty now, most guests having moved to the reception area. But one person remained, standing awkwardly by the fountain. Lonnie. He looked older, greyer. Prison had stripped away his polished exterior, leaving something raw and uncertain. "Catherine," his voice cracked. "You've done amazing things here. What do you want, Lonnie?" "To apologize. Really apologize, not like before." He shuffled his feet. "I read about your foundation in the paper, the women you're helping. It made me realize how wrong I was, about everything." "Thank you for saying that." I kept my voice neutral. "But if you're looking for forgiveness, I'm not." He shook his head. "I don't deserve it. I needed you to know that you never held me back. I held myself back, and I'll regret losing you for the rest of my life." Before I could respond, Camden appeared at my side. "Everything all right here?" Lonnie's eyes darted between us, understanding dawning on his face. "I should go. Just congratulations, Catherine, on all of this. You deserve it." We watched him leave through the grand entrance. Camden squeezed my hand. "You okay?" "Perfect." I smiled, meaning it. "Let's get back to the party." Upstairs, the celebration was in full swing. Our graduates danced with their families, board members mingled with shelter workers, and Lexi was giving tours to potential donors. I looked at Victoria's portrait on the wall, at her knowing smile. She'd seen this potential in me long before I'd seen it in myself. "Thank you," I whispered to her image. The locket around my neck felt warm against my skin, like a gentle reminder. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. And I was just getting started. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Victoria's secret gardens as I walked through the quiet halls before opening hours. My heels clicked against the marble floors, the same sound I remembered from visiting Aunt Victoria as a child. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Vanessa Clark denied early release. Additional charges filed. "Someone's having a bad morning," Camden said, falling into step beside me. He handed me my usual coffee. "Ready for the big announcement?" "As ready as I'll ever be." In the main conference room, board members and employees gathered. Robert winked at me from his seat. Lexi stood near the podium, reviewing her notes one last time. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "when I took over this company, I made a promise to honor Victoria's vision while forging our own path forward. Today, we're taking another step in that direction." Lexi stepped up, clicking through presentation slides. "Our New Beginnings program has achieved a 92% success rate. We've helped over 200 women rebuild their lives. And now we're expanding." The room burst into applause as we revealed the plans for 5 new locations, each with integrated training facilities and transitional housing. "But that's not all," I continued. "We're launching the Victoria Simmons Scholarship Fund, providing full university tuition for survivors of domestic abuse and financial fraud." More applause, more tears. Sarah, now our head of community outreach, hugged me tight. The door opened. Jarrett entered, carrying a thick envelope. "It's done," he whispered, handing it to me. I opened it right there, in front of everyone. The documents inside represented the final victory, complete ownership of Victoria's secret gardens, with ironclad protections for our charitable programs. To Victoria, Robert raised his coffee cup. And to Catherine, who proved that success is the best revenge. After the meeting, Camden found me in Victoria's garden, the rooftop sanctuary she'd created for quiet reflection. "Penny for your thoughts." He sat beside me on the marble bench. "I was just thinking about that letter Lonnie left me. You've always held me back." I touched a blooming rose. He was so wrong. I wasn't holding anyone back. I was just waiting to bloom myself. "Speaking of blooming," Camden shifted nervously, "there's something I've been wanting to ask you." Before he could continue, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Catherine?" Lexi's voice was urgent. "Turn on the news, now." Camden already had his tablet out. The headline made my breath catch. "Former socialite Vanessa Clark attempts prison escape, found unconscious in utility tunnel." "I guess karma wasn't finished with her yet," Camden mused. "No," I smiled. "I suppose not." We walked back inside, where the day was in full swing. Women filled the halls, some in spa robes, others in business attire, all part of the transformation this place represented. In my office, I found a letter on my desk. The return address was the state prison. "Another one from Lonnie?" Camden asked. "No." I opened it carefully. "It's from Vanessa." The letter was short. "You won. I hope you're happy with your perfect little empire of broken women. But remember, everything that goes around comes around." I laughed, feeding the letter into the shredder. She still doesn't get it, does she? This was never about winning or losing. It was about building something meaningful from the ashes of betrayal. Speaking of building something, Camden took my hand. "What I was trying to say earlier. Catherine, will you—" A knock interrupted us. Sarah stood in the doorway with a group of new program participants. "Sorry to interrupt, but these ladies wanted to meet the woman who started it all." I looked at their faces, nervous, hopeful, determined. Just like I'd been that day I found Lonnie's letter. "Welcome to Victoria's Secret Gardens," I said warmly. "Let me tell you about a woman named Victoria, who taught me that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as our worst moments." Camden squeezed my hand, understanding his moment would come later. This was more important. As I shared Victoria's story, and mine, with these women, I felt the final pieces click into place. The betrayals, the pain, the victories. They'd all led here, to this moment, to these lives I could help change. Victoria's portrait smiled down at us, that knowing look in her eyes. She'd seen it all along. The strength I had inside, waiting to emerge. I touched the locket around my neck, feeling its familiar warmth. Some people might call it revenge, this empire built from betrayal. But I knew better. This wasn't revenge, this was redemption. And it was beautiful.
The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my sister Maureen glide through the banquet hall, commanding attention with every step. Even at our parents' 40th anniversary celebration, she had to make it all about herself. "My name is Rosalind, and I've spent 31 years living in my sister's shadow." "Oh, darling," Maureen's voice carried across the room as she air-kissed our mother's cheeks. "The party is absolutely divine, though I would have recommended the Four Seasons instead of this quaint venue." I took another sip of champagne, grateful for the liquid courage. Jake, my best friend, squeezed my arm reassuringly. "Don't let her get to you, Roz. Your startup is going to change everything. If it survives another month," I muttered, watching Maureen work the room in her designer dress that probably cost more than my quarterly rent. "Rosalind," my father's booming voice made me jump. "Come join your sister. She's telling everyone about her latest promotion." Of course she was. I plastered on a smile and made my way over to the growing crowd around Maureen. The clicking of my sensible heels seemed dull compared to the sharp staccato of her Louboutins. "There's my baby sister." Maureen's perfectly painted lips curved into what others might mistake for a warm smile. "I was just telling everyone about my new position as senior vice president." "Congratulations," I managed, though the word tasted bitter. "And what about you, dear?" my mother's friend Patricia asked, her eyes kind but patronizing. Still working on that little, what was it again? It's a tech startup, I began, but Maureen cut in with a laugh that made my skin crawl. Oh, Mom, did I tell you about the merger I just orchestrated? $2 billion in assets. She turned to me with false concern. How much was your last quarter's revenue, Rosie? Still in the red? The room seemed to shrink. I could feel dozens of eyes on me, waiting for my response. Jake appeared at my elbow with a fresh glass of champagne, but Maureen wasn't finished. You know, sis, there's no shame in admitting the entrepreneur life isn't for everyone. I'm sure I could find you something entry-level at my company. The benefits are excellent. My company is doing fine, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. We're actually on the verge of what? Another failed prototype? Maureen's laugh turned heads. Remember her lemonade stand when we were kids? She couldn't even make that work. Our mother tittered nervously. Girls, please, this is supposed to be about your father and me. I'm just trying to help, Maureen said, raising her glass. We can't all be successful. Someone has to be. She paused for effect. The family disappointment. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw pity in some faces, amusement in others. My father suddenly became very interested in his shoes, while my mother fussed with her pearls. You'll never be successful like me, Rosie, Maureen continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. It's time to accept that and move on. My phone buzzed in my clutch. A message from Leandro Delgado, the investor I'd been courting for months. The same investor who, coincidentally, had just pulled out of negotiations with Maureen's company. Excuse me, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. I need to take this call. As I walked away, I heard Maureen launch into another story about her corporate triumphs. But for the first time in years, I didn't care, because I knew something she didn't. Something that would wipe that smug smile off her face in less than an hour. Jake followed me to the hallway. You okay? I checked my phone again, a smile playing at my lips. Better than okay. Leandro's calling in 5 minutes. The deal? Maybe. I straightened my spine, remembering all the nights I'd worked while Maureen partied, all the savings I'd invested while she bought designer bags. But either way, I'm done being the family disappointment. What are you going to do? I glanced back at the party, where Maureen was still holding court. I'm going to show my dear sister that success comes in many forms, and karma can be a real bitch. My phone started vibrating. Leandro's name flashed on the screen. Wish me luck, I said to Jake, my hand steady as I reached for the phone. The time for living in shadows was over. One way or another, this night would change everything. I stepped into the quiet hallway, my heels clicking against the marble floor as I answered Leandro's call. My heart was pounding, but my voice remained steady. Leandro, thank you for calling. Rosalind, his accented voice was warm but businesslike. I've reviewed your proposal again. Very interesting timing considering what happened with your sister's company. I leaned against the wall, watching through the doorway as Maureen continued to dominate the party. Timing is everything in business, isn't it? Indeed, he paused. Tell me again why I should invest in your company instead of hers. The question brought me back to 3 years ago, sitting in my tiny apartment with Jake, surrounded by prototype sketches and empty coffee cups. Remember when we first met? I asked. You said you wanted innovation that would actually help people, not just make money. I remember. My sister's company is all about profit margins and quarterly reports, but my software, it's already helping small businesses cut their energy costs by 40%. Real people, real savings. Jake appeared in the hallway, giving me a thumbs up. I took a deep breath and continued. And that's just the beginning. With your investment, we could expand to— Stop selling, Leandro interrupted. I've made my decision. My stomach dropped. Through the doorway, I could see Maureen raising her glass for another toast. The papers are being drawn up as we speak, he said. 20 million with the terms we discussed. The world seemed to tilt. You're saying yes? I'm saying yes, and I've already informed the media. They should be running the story within the hour. I gripped the phone tighter. The media? Is that a problem? No, I said quickly, thinking of the TV running in the background at the party. No problem at all. After hanging up, I slumped against the wall. Jake rushed over. Well, what did he say? I showed him the text that just came through. The official term sheet. His eyes widened. Holy shit, Roz. 20 million. This is huge. Shh. I pulled him further from the doorway. The story's gonna break on the news soon. I want it to be a surprise. Jake's grin turned wicked. You mean you want Maureen to find out along with everyone else? Exactly. That's cold. He paused. I love it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Yvette, my mentor. Did you get it? She texted. The news crew is ready. You knew? I texted back. Who do you think suggested your company to Leandro? Tears pricked my eyes. While Maureen had been busy tearing me down, others had been quietly building me up. We should get back, Jake said, nodding toward the party. Your parents are about to give their anniversary speech. Wait, I grabbed his arm. What if this makes everything worse? Worse than your sister humiliating you in front of everyone you know? Point taken. We returned just as my father was tapping his glass for attention. Maureen immediately tried to stand next to him, but he waved her back. Laura, he said, looking at my mother, 40 years ago, you took a chance on a nervous young man who couldn't even tie his bow tie properly. The crowd chuckled. I checked my phone, 15 minutes until the evening news. You believed in me when no one else did, he continued, and that belief changed everything. My mother wiped away a tear. I noticed the TV volume had been turned up for the speech, the news anchor's voice a quiet murmur in the background. Sometimes, my father said, all it takes is one person believing in you to— Breaking news, the TV suddenly blared. All heads turned toward the screen. My heart stopped. This was it. We're receiving reports of a major investment in the clean energy sector. Maureen's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Local startup founder Rosalind Harrison has secured a $20 million investment from tech mogul Leandro Delgado. The room erupted in gasps. All eyes swung from the TV to me, then to Maureen, whose face had gone completely white. The deal, reportedly finalized just moments ago, represents one of the largest clean energy investments in the state this year. Rosalind, my mother's voice quavered. Is this true? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with notifications. The story was everywhere. I looked at Maureen, remembering her words from earlier. Someone has to be the family disappointment, I said softly, but it doesn't have to be me anymore. The room burst into chaos as everyone started talking at once. Through it all, I kept my eyes on the TV, where my company's logo filled the screen. The shadow I'd lived in for so long was finally lifting. But as my sister stormed out of the room, I couldn't help wondering, at what cost? The next 15 minutes were a blur of congratulations and questions. Everyone who had politely ignored me earlier now wanted to know every detail about my company. Even my father's golf buddies, who usually only talked stocks with Maureen, were suddenly interested in clean energy technology. I always knew you had it in you, my mother gushed, though we both knew that wasn't true. She'd spent years suggesting I follow Maureen's path into corporate finance. Yvette appeared at my side, rescuing me from another round of questions. Let's get some air, she said, steering me toward the terrace. Outside, the evening air was cool against my flushed skin. Yvette handed me a glass of water instead of champagne. You'll want a clear head for what's coming, she said, leaning against the railing. The real work starts tomorrow. I know, I took a sip of water. But tonight you get to enjoy watching your sister squirm? Yvette raised an eyebrow. That's not why I helped you get this investment, you know. I know. It's about the technology and it's about you, she interrupted. I invested my time in you because you're brilliant, not because you're Maureen's sister. Before I could respond, Jake burst through the terrace doors. Roz, you need to see this. Maureen's giving some kind of speech. We hurried back inside. Maureen stood in the center of the room, her mascara slightly smudged, but her voice steady. As the more experienced businesswoman in the family, she was saying, I feel it's my duty to warn everyone about the risks of startup investments. My father shifted uncomfortably. Maureen, perhaps this isn't the time. No, Dad, they need to hear this. She turned to address the crowd. 9 out of 10 startups fail. That's just statistics. And when they fail, they don't just hurt the founder, they hurt everyone who believed in them. Unlike certain corporate mergers that fall through, the words left my mouth before I could stop them. Maureen's eyes narrowed. At least I didn't have to manipulate my way into a deal. Manipulate? I stepped forward. You mean like how you manipulated Mom and Dad into paying for your MBA while I worked 3 jobs to fund my company? Girls, my mother's voice cracked. Please, not at our anniversary party. But Maureen wasn't finished. You think getting one investment makes you successful? You have no idea what's coming. The pressure, the expectations, the fear of failure, I cut in. Trust me, sis, I know all about that. I've been living with it since we were kids. The room had gone completely silent. Even the waiters had stopped circulating. You want to talk about failure? Maureen's voice was dangerously low. Let's talk about how you're going to feel when everyone realizes you're in way over your head. That's enough. Yvette stepped between us. Maureen, I've worked with both you and your sister. The difference is, Rosalind actually listens to advice instead of just pretending to know everything. And who exactly are you? Someone who's built and sold 3 successful companies. Yvette smiled coolly. While you were climbing the corporate ladder, I was building the whole building. A murmur went through the crowd. Maureen's face flushed red. Well, she said, forcing a laugh, I guess we'll all see how this plays out, but don't come crying to me when… The TV suddenly blared again. More breaking news on the Delgado investment story. Sources confirmed that the deal came shortly after Delgado Ventures pulled out of negotiations with Standard Corp, citing philosophical differences with their business model. All color drained from Maureen's face. Standard Corp was her company. Is that true? My father asked, looking between us. Did you know about this, Rosalind? I started, but Maureen cut me off with a bitter laugh. Of course she knew. She probably planned it this way, waiting until my company's deal fell through, then swooping in to steal our investor. I didn't steal anything, I said firmly. Leandro chose to invest in my company because we align with his values, something you might want to think about. Values don't pay shareholders, Maureen snapped. No, I agreed, but they help you sleep at night. The room erupted in whispers. I could see people taking sides, some nodding with Maureen, others looking at me with new respect. Jake touched my arm. Your parents look like they're about to have a stroke. He was right. Mom was stress-eating canapes while Dad kept loosening his bow tie. Maybe we should, I started, but was interrupted by my phone buzzing. The caller ID showed Leandro's name. Excuse me, I said, echoing my words from earlier. I need to take this call. As I walked away, I heard Maureen say something about beginner's luck, but this time her words didn't sting, because this time I wasn't the one who needed to prove herself anymore. Rosalind, Leandro's voice was urgent. Turn on CNBC now. I rushed back into the main room, where the TV was still running. Can someone change this to CNBC? I called out. Jake grabbed the remote and switched channels. There I was, my company logo splashed across the screen alongside Leandro's. The ticker at the bottom read, Breaking, Delgado Ventures backs revolutionary green tech startup. I wanted to warn you, Leandro said through the phone. The story's bigger than we anticipated. Your sister's company's stock is already responding to the news. As if on cue, the anchor started speaking. In a surprising turn of events, Standard Corp shares dropped 12% in after-hours trading following the announcement that Delgado Ventures has chosen to back their competitor. Maureen's phone started ringing. She fumbled with it, her hands shaking as she declined the call. Another call came immediately after, and another. The market's reaction is quite telling, the TV analyst continued. Standard Corp's failed negotiation with Delgado signals a potential shift in investor confidence. Turn it off, Maureen snapped, but nobody moved. This emerging player in the green energy sector, the anchor gestured to my company's logo, represents a new approach to sustainable technology. My father stepped closer to the TV, adjusting his glasses. Rosie, is that your prototype they're showing? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with another call, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Harrison? A woman's voice said when I answered. This is Sarah from the Wall Street Journal. We'd love to get your comment on. No comment, I said quickly, hanging up. Maureen's laugh was hollow. Not so easy being in the spotlight, is it? Ladies, my mother pleaded, can we please just enjoy what's left of our party? But the damage was done. The elegant anniversary celebration had transformed into something else entirely. Half the guests were glued to their phones, watching the market reaction. The other half were trying to get close enough to hear my conversation with Leandro. We should schedule a proper press conference, Leandro was saying. Tomorrow morning? Tomorrow? I glanced at Yvette, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, that works. Perfect. My team will send the details. He paused. And Rosalind? Congratulations. You earned this. As I hung up, I noticed my parents huddled in a corner, speaking in hushed tones. My mother was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Mom? I moved toward them. Are you okay? Oh, honey. She reached for my hand. We had no idea. All this time we thought you were struggling, my father finished. We should have paid more attention. Well, Maureen cut in, appearing beside us. She was struggling until today's little publicity stunt. It's not a stunt, I said firmly. My team has been working on this technology for 3 years. Your team? Maureen scoffed. You mean those college dropouts who work out of your garage? Those dropouts include 2 PhD candidates and a former NASA engineer, Yvette interjected. I've worked with them myself. My father's eyebrows shot up. NASA? Dad? Maureen touched his arm. Don't let them fool you. This is all smoke and mirrors. In 6 months. In 6 months, I interrupted. Our technology will be helping thousands of small businesses reduce their carbon footprint while saving money. What will your next merger do, besides make your shareholders richer? The room fell silent again. Even the TV seemed quieter. You know what? Maureen grabbed her purse. I don't have to stand here and listen to this. I have a board meeting in the morning. To discuss the stock drop? Jake muttered, just loud enough to hear. Maureen spun around, her eyes blazing. This isn't over, Rosie. You may have won this round, but you have no idea what you're getting into. The corporate world will eat you alive. Maybe, I said, standing taller, but at least I'll be doing something that matters. She stormed toward the exit but paused at the door. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry your anniversary party was ruined by this. After she left, the room seemed to exhale collectively. My mother sank into a chair. I need a drink, she announced. Make that 2, my father added. Jake appeared with fresh champagne for everyone. I'd say this calls for a real celebration now. As glasses were raised, I caught Yvette's eye. She gave me a subtle nod, but her expression was serious. We both knew this was just the beginning. My phone buzzed again. More press requests, more investors, more opportunities. The quiet days of working in obscurity were over, and somewhere across town I knew Maureen was already plotting her next move. The question was, who would crack first under the pressure? The morning after the party, my office was chaos. Phones rang nonstop, emails flooded in, and reporters camped outside our modest building. Jake had brought coffee and donuts, but they sat untouched as my team scrambled to prepare for the press conference. Your sister's on line 3, my assistant called out. Again, still not taking her calls, I replied, adjusting my blazer in the reflection of my computer screen. The same screen that displayed dozens of news articles about last night's events. Yvette burst through the door. Change of plans. We're moving the press conference to the Delgado building downtown. More professional. But, no buts. Your sister's already giving interviews, trying to spin this her way. I grabbed my laptop. What's she saying? See for yourself. Yvette handed me her phone, showing a business news interview from 20 minutes ago. There was Maureen, perfectly composed in her office, speaking directly to the camera. While I'm happy for my sister's small success, I have concerns about inexperienced startups making promises they can't keep to investors. Turn it off, I growled. No. Yvette held the phone firmly. Watch and learn. This is what you're up against. Maureen continued. At Standard Corp, we believe in proven track records, not just flashy prototypes. Our shareholders trust us because the office door flew open. My mother stood there, looking frazzled. Mom? I stood up. What are you doing here? Have you seen the morning news? Your father hasn't slept. Maureen's been calling nonstop. This has to stop, Rosalind. What has to stop? My success. This feud. You're tearing the family apart. Jake stepped forward. With all due respect, Mrs. H., Maureen started this. And I'm finishing it, I added. My mother sank into a chair. By destroying your sister's company? I'm not destroying anything. I'm building something important. Why can't you see that? Because all I see are my daughters trying to hurt each other. The office fell silent except for the persistent ringing of phones. Mrs. Harrison, Yvette said gently, your daughters are both adults in a competitive industry. This isn't personal, it's business. Everything's personal with Maureen, I muttered. As if summoned by her name, my sister appeared in the doorway. Her designer suit was immaculate, but her eyes were hard. Well, she said, stepping inside. Quite an upgrade from the garage. How did you get past security? Jake demanded. I told them I was here to support my sister. Maureen's smile was razor sharp. Family first, right, Mom? Our mother looked between us helplessly. What do you want, Maureen? I asked, checking my watch. The press conference was in 40 minutes. I want to offer you a deal. She pulled out a folder. Standard Corp is willing to acquire your company. Very generous terms. I laughed. You're kidding. Think about it, Rosie. You get a nice payout, a cushy executive position, and most importantly, she glanced at our mother, family peace. You mean you get to save face and absorb your competition? I mean, I'm trying to protect you. Maureen's composure cracked. You have no idea what's coming. The scrutiny, the pressure, the sharks circling. Like you're circling right now? Ladies, our mother pleaded. Please, Face it, Maureen, I said, standing straighter. You're not here to protect me. You're here because for the first time in your life, you're scared of me. Her eyes flashed. Scared? Of what? Your little science project? Please, I'm trying to save you from embarrassing yourself. No, Yvette cut in. You're trying to save yourself. Standard Corp's stock dropped another 5% this morning. Your board must be loving that. Maureen's hand tightened on the folder. This offer expires in 24 hours. So does your credibility if you don't turn things around, I replied. Must be tough, having your perfect image crack in front of everyone. At least I built my success honestly, instead of manipulating family events for publicity. Honestly, I stepped closer. Should we talk about how you got your first promotion? Or why Dad's friend suddenly invested in your department? Stop it. Our mother stood up, tears in her eyes. Both of you, just stop. Rosalind, Jake called from the door. We need to leave for the press conference. Maureen straightened her jacket. This isn't over. No, I agreed, gathering my things. It's just beginning. As we headed for the elevator, our mother called after us. Your father and I are calling a family meeting, tonight. Both of you need to be there. Maureen and I exchanged glances. For the first time since childhood, we shared the same thought. This wasn't going to end well. But as the elevator doors closed between us, I knew there was no going back. The time for playing nice was over. The family meeting was set for 7 p.m. at my parents' house. I arrived 10 minutes early to find Maureen's luxury SUV already parked in the driveway. Of course, she'd want to get there first, set the stage like always. Inside, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. My father sat in his favorite armchair, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Mom was stress baking. The kitchen counter was covered with cookies nobody would eat. Sit down, both of you, Dad said, his voice tired. Maureen and I took seats on opposite ends of the couch. Would anyone like coffee? Mom called from the kitchen. Mom, please just sit down, I said. Let's get this over with. She emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. Over with? This is your family, Rosalind, not some business meeting. Could have fooled me, Maureen muttered. Dad leaned forward. Your mother and I have been talking. This competition between you two, it's gone too far. Competition? I laughed. Is that what you call Maureen trying to sabotage my company? Sabotage? Maureen sat up straight. I offered to save you from yourself. By trying to steal my company? Girls! Mom's voice cracked. This is exactly what we're talking about. What happened to the sisters who used to share everything? She happened, Maureen pointed at me. Little Miss Perfect, always playing the victim while scheming behind everyone's back. Me? I stood up. You're the one who's been undermining me my entire life. Remember my college graduation? You announced your engagement during my party. That wasn't intentional. Just like it wasn't intentional when you told my first investor I was emotionally unstable. The room fell silent. My parents exchanged shocked looks. You did what? Dad asked Maureen. She shifted uncomfortably. I was protecting him from making a bad investment. No, I said, you were protecting yourself. Just like always. Heaven forbid anyone else in the family succeed. Succeed? Maureen stood too. You want to talk about success? I worked my ass off to get where I am. Nobody handed me anything. Except Dad's connections, Mom's praise, and everyone's constant attention. Stop! Mom was crying now. Please, just stop. Dad cleared his throat. We need to acknowledge our part in this. What? Maureen and I said simultaneously. Your mother and I, he continued, we may have contributed to this rivalry. May have? I sat back down. You compared us at every turn. Grades, sports, careers. We were trying to motivate you. Mom said weakly. To what? Hate each other? Maureen's voice was bitter. Mission accomplished. I don't hate you, I said quietly. I just wanted you to see me. Really see me, not just as your failing little sister. Something flickered in Maureen's eyes. I see you, she said. I see how everyone's suddenly acting like you're some brilliant innovator when I know it's just a matter of time before… Before what? Before I prove you right? Before I fail? Before you realize what it really costs? Maureen's voice broke. Do you think I enjoy being this person? The one everyone expects to be perfect all the time? The room grew quiet again, but different this time. Heavier. I never wanted to be perfect, I said. I just wanted to be enough. Mom started sobbing. Dad got up to comfort her. You were always enough, he said, looking at both of us. Both of you. We didn't know how to show it. Maureen's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. What is it? I asked, despite myself. Board meeting tomorrow morning, emergency session. She looked up at me. They're voting on my position. For a moment, I saw past the perfect exterior to the scared sister underneath, the one who used to let me crawl into her bed during thunderstorms. I hesitated. I could release a statement about our companies exploring collaboration opportunities. Maureen stared at me. You'd do that? On one condition, I said. You stop trying to undermine me, publicly or privately. She was quiet for a long moment. The board wants blood. They'll see it as weakness if I don't fight back, or they'll see it as strategic thinking, Dad suggested. Two sisters combining their strengths instead of tearing each other down. Mom had stopped crying. Does this mean? It means we're trying, I said, looking at Maureen. Right? She nodded slowly. Trying. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close to resolved. But as we sat there in our parents' living room, surrounded by the smell of stress-baked cookies, something shifted. Maybe, just maybe, there was room for two successful sisters in this family after all. 2 weeks after the family meeting, I sat in my office staring at an email that made my blood run cold. Our latest product test had failed spectacularly, and worse, the data had leaked to the press. My phone rang. It was Maureen. Have you seen the headlines? She asked, skipping the greeting. Yeah, I refreshed my browser. The story was everywhere. Green tech startups' revolutionary product shows fatal flaws. Your stock options are going to tank when the market opens. We're not public yet, I reminded her. No, but Delgado Ventures is, and they're heavily invested in you. She paused. The board meeting didn't go well, did it? I glanced at the conference room where Leandro had just finished reaming out my entire team. Could say that. Jake burst in without knocking. Reuters is on line 1. What do you want me to tell them? Nothing yet. I turned back to the phone. Maureen, I have to… Don't say anything to the press. She cut in. Come to my office, now. What? Why? Because I've been through this before, and you need help. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Maureen in her corner office, watching her pace. First rule of crisis management, she said. Never let them see you sweat. Easy for you to say. Your career isn't imploding. No? She laughed bitterly. Remember that merger I mentioned at Mom and Dad's party? It failed because I rushed due diligence. Cost the company millions. I never knew that. Because I managed the narrative. She sat down. Show me the test results. I handed her my laptop. As she read, her frown deepened. This isn't as bad as they're making it sound, she said finally. Tell that to Leandro. He's talking about pulling his investment. He won't. She started typing. But we need to get ahead of this story. We? Yes, we. I meant what I said at the family meeting. She turned the laptop around. Look at this. She'd drafted a joint press release announcing a partnership between our companies to enhance the technology's safety features. "You do that?" I asked. "Put your company's reputation on the line for me?" "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because it's smart business." But her slight smile suggested otherwise. My phone buzzed. Yvette. "The vultures are circling," she said when I answered. "3 companies just made lowball acquisition offers." "Including Standard Corp?" I asked, eyeing Maureen. "No." Yvette sounded surprised. "They're the only major player who hasn't tried to capitalize on this." Maureen pretended to be absorbed in her computer. "Listen," Yvette continued, "we need to call an emergency board meeting. This could get ugly." After hanging up, I slumped in my chair. "Maybe I am in over my head." "Of course you are," Maureen said. "Everyone is at first. The difference is whether you sink or swim." Says the person who never struggled with anything. She stopped typing. "You really believe that?" "Come on, Maureen. Everything always came easy to you." "Easy?" She stood up and walked to her window. "You want to know why I announced my engagement at your graduation? Because you're self-centered? Because I was terrified." She turned to face me. "You were graduating with honors, starting your own company, following your dreams. I was stuck in a job I hated, engaged to a man I wasn't sure about, trying to live up to everyone's expectations. But you were already successful. I was surviving. There's a difference." She returned to her desk. "Now, are we going to fix this mess or what?" Before I could answer, Jake called. "Roz, you need to see this. Someone just leaked internal emails about the product tests." My stomach dropped. "How bad?" "Bad enough that Leandro's board is calling for an emergency session." Maureen was already grabbing her coat. "Where's the meeting?" "You're not coming," I said. "The hell I'm not. You need someone who speaks corporate shark." As we rode the elevator to her parking garage, she turned to me. "You know this might not work, right? We might both go down in flames. Why are you really helping me?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because watching you fail won't make me feel successful anymore. And maybe it's time we both succeeded." Her phone buzzed, a news alert. The market had opened and Delgado Ventures stock was already dropping. "Ready to face the sharks?" she asked. I took a deep breath. Ready to face them together. For the first time in years, my sister and I were on the same side. Now, we just had to hope it wasn't too late for both of us. The Delgado Ventures boardroom felt like a courtroom, with Leandro's board members sitting in judgment. Maureen and I sat side by side, facing them. "This partnership announcement," one board member said, waving the press release, "it feels desperate." "It's strategic," Maureen countered. "Standard Corp's engineering team has identified the source of the testing anomaly." I pulled up the technical analysis on the screen. "The problem isn't with the core technology, it's with the testing parameters we used." "Which my team can help fix," Maureen added. "We've done similar implementations on a larger scale. Leandro studied us both. And we're supposed to believe this sudden sisterly cooperation isn't just damage control?" "Actually," I said, "it's something that should have happened long ago." I glanced at Maureen. Sometimes the best partnerships come from unexpected places. "Speaking of partnerships," another board member cut in, "Standard Corp's stock rose 3% after your announcement. Quite convenient." Maureen straightened. "If you're implying this is market manipulation—" "We're implying nothing," Leandro interrupted. "We're stating it directly." "Then let me be direct too," I said, standing up. "Yes, my sister and I have had our differences. Yes, this partnership might seem convenient, but look at the numbers." I switched to the next slide, showing the potential market impact of our combined approach. "Together, we can roll this out twice as fast, with better safety protocols and established distribution channels. Or," I paused, "you can pull your investment. watch both our companies suffer, and miss out on what could be the biggest green tech innovation of the decade. The room fell silent. Maureen stood up beside me. "My sister built something revolutionary," she said. "I was too proud to see it before, but I'm seeing it now, and so is the market." My phone buzzed. A message from Jake. "Turn on CNBC now." I grabbed the remote and switched on the boardroom TV. A major tech news anchor was speaking. In an unprecedented move, Standard Corp and their former rival have announced a joint venture that industry experts are calling a game changer in sustainable energy. The stock tickers showed both Delgado Ventures and Standard Corp trending upward. "Well," Leandro said, a slight smile playing at his lips, "it seems the market has spoken." The board voted to maintain their investment with additional funding for the joint venture. As we left the boardroom, Maureen grabbed my arm. "We did it," she whispered. "We did it right," I corrected. Our parents were waiting in the lobby. Mom was crying again, but this time they were happy tears. "My girls," she said, hugging us both, "working together instead of against each other." Dad just stood there beaming. "I always knew." "Don't," Maureen and I said together, then laughed. Jake and Yvette appeared with champagne. "Sorry to crash the family moment," Yvette said, "but this calls for a celebration." As glasses were passed around, I noticed Maureen staring at her phone. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay." She showed me the screen, emails from major clients praising the partnership. "Turns out doing the right thing is good business." "Who knew?" I clinked my glass against hers. "I did," Yvette said. "Why do you think I pushed you two together?" We all turned to stare at her. "Oh, please," she laughed. "You think it was coincidence that Leandro looked at both your companies? That the news broke during your parents' anniversary party? That your crisis aligned perfectly with a partnership opportunity?" "You planned this?" Maureen asked incredulously. "I planted seeds," Yvette corrected. "You two did the rest, eventually." Mom shook her head. "I don't know whether to thank you or scold you." "Thank her," I said, hugging Yvette. "Sometimes we need a push to see what's right in front of us." "Speaking of which," Maureen said, pulling out a folder, "I have some ideas for our first joint project." "Already? We just finished the board meeting." "Time waits for no one, little sister." But her smile was warm. "Ready to change the world?" I looked around at my family, not just my parents and sister, but Jake, Yvette, even Leandro joining our celebration. The people who believed in me, challenged me, pushed me to be better. "Ready," I said, taking the folder, "but this time, let's change it together." As we gathered around to look at Maureen's proposals, I realized something. Success wasn't about proving myself to anyone. It was about becoming the person I was meant to be. And sometimes that person needed both rivalry and reconciliation to emerge. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something better, redemption for both of us, and that was worth more than any business deal.